All right. Let me see here. All right, people. Hope everybody's well. Hope everybody is good. Like, subscribe, join, donate, support the show. Hit the hype button so we can continue to bring you this independent black male thought. What is good? Got a strong number in the house already, coming through at 78. Hit the like button as you come in, please. What's up, Mark? Good to see you in here. No Fear, what's up? Ahmed, Malika, what's going on, good brother? Let me see. Malika, man, I'm probably gonna have to do. We're gonna have to do another Justice League when this Is God Is film comes out. So, go see that joint when it comes out, and we will get it together. Let's see. Grab Second Gear. What's going on, John? What's happening? Shout out to Barry Little as usual, doing the good work. Much appreciated for supporting the channel, man. Johanna, what's up? Let me see. We got Growth Talk in the house. Y'all support Growth Talk. Support the good brother. Hope you're well, man. You got to tell me the update on your son, man. Let me know how he's doing. We got Yami, I think that is. What's going on? We got Callie. What's going on? Mike, what's happening? Dr. Thunder. Show some support to Dr. Thunder. Hope you're well, man. My best to the family. Hope everybody's good. Hurricane. Shout out to Interlight Radio, Black-owned online radio station. We are broadcasting today, I believe, from Interlight later this evening. Well, actually live and direct this evening. We're also broadcasting on, Facebook, LinkedIn, and of course, YouTube, right? Andre, what's going on? Cynical Optimist, what's happening? Jeff, we got Ernest, Indigo, and shout out to Barry for the support. Dropped a few dollars in there, much appreciated. Ghetto User, what's going on? Duff, B Ford, we got Ray. Appreciate that. DJ, what's going on? Okay, let me see. Big discussions. Shout out to the good brother right there. Hope you're well, man. Hope everything's good. We got Ashley in the house. Appreciate that, Booker, supporting the show right off the bat. Thank you. Shout out to Black Toxic Masculinist. Hope everybody's well. All right, so got a little in-house business to cover. This is one of my rare opportunities where I get to geek out, and there are a few of you out there that understand the importance of these geek out moments. So forgive me as I indulge a little bit. Now, I'm gonna show you 3 swords. We're just gonna get this out the way real quick because y'all know I'm an avid sword collector. I love my stuff. It is what it is. So I'm gonna show you the newest edition, but I got to do this with 3. Right? So y'all know that as a kid, I was that first generation that was watching in 4th grade when He-Man first hit the screens, right? So the only He-Man sword I was able to find years ago was this one. And it's, it's one of these kind of homemade, self-made ones. I didn't make it, but it was reminiscent to the old one from the cartoon, which as an artist, I never liked. I always thought the design was ugly, but it still has a nostalgia thing. So I checked it out. A few years ago, and you guys have been seeing this one on the wall, whether you knew it or not. This was a remake that they made several years ago where they kind of tried to go with the original design of the Sword of Power. This was more so based off the little mini comic books you used to get when you'd buy the He-Man swords. So I kind of popped up with that one. But this is the newest. This is the newest baby to the collection. And it is in the design of the new movie on its way up. Now, I haven't obviously seen the new movie. It's not out yet. I have no idea if it'll be good or bad, but I got to say the sword was pretty. So I had to go ahead and pick that up. So my little collection is getting bigger than I intended it to be, but that's all right. I'm addicted. It just so happens that all my habits, all my projects are solo ventures. They're not, I'm not the most social person. You know, whether I'm reading comic books, playing chess, or collecting swords, all my favorite hobbies are solo ventures. Girl Talk says, I have the power. Real talk. Yeah, man. Oh, man. I gotta, this is the collection you guys can see. You can't see the whole thing. You know, so I gotta say, you know, I'm in love with my little collection. Shout out to Malika. Yeah, man. I mean, I'll say the special effects, the trailers look good. Hopefully they don't jack it up. But whether they jack it up or not, I will say I like the sword. I will say that. If the film is horrible, I can at least say I like the sword. So every time a sword comes out that I like, I'm going to find it somewhere. So wanted to share that with you. You know, the collection continues to grow. Last thing, and you can see it on the shirt I'm wearing, but I'm going to show you on another one. Just got them in. All right. So you can go and you can check it on the, there it is. There we go. Yeah. You can check it on the actual merchandise website. This is the No More Pit Bullying. This is the second version of the shirt. I have another one with no graphics. It's just the text, but this one is the one I showed you guys a little while back with the actual pit bull on it. So it says no more pit bullying. And as y'all know, pit bullying is the act of sicking a black man on another. And so we developed the merchandise in alignment with some of the concepts that are both on the 19-point black male political agenda and just some of the concepts we run across in the show. So if you're interested in that, you can go ahead and check out the merchandise store. The link is in the bottom of the description box. If I'm, I believe it is there. And if you haven't seen it, you can do so quite easily. And I'll share it with you real quick. All right. So here it is. So this is the Institute for Black Male Studies. Turn this fan off. It's messing with my mic. All right. So you go to the Institute for Black Male Studies. You click the menu, hit catalog. And if you go from new to old, which is in this drop box over here, sort by, you can see all the new merchandise there. All right. So we got t-shirts, the caps, the mugs, the hoodies. There are bags in there. Got all kinds of stuff, you know, for the Onyx Report, for the Institute for Black Male Studies, for some of the concepts. We got one up there for blue leashing as well. So if you're interested in any of that, that's where you go. You can pick up some of that, and hopefully you guys will enjoy it. So shout out to y'all. Yeah, the blue leashing shirt is up there. The first design, I'm thinking of doing a second one, but there is a first design for the blue leashing shirt that is up there. So yeah, just go into it, and there are pages of merchandise, new merchandise. You can go check it out, and you'll see the blue leashing one. But yeah, in light of some of the cases that I've put up on my recent shows, I had to have the pit bull ones up, because the case we saw, the case I just covered, this morning, is evidence of that, you know, sadly, you know, but evidence of that with Gianni and Jaheim Pierre, right? Their sister called him in to confront her boyfriend, and both of them are gone, you know. So we got to get hold of this and be able to operate with it a little differently. There's nothing wrong with protecting family, but sicking men on men is something we're going to have to reevaluate. Let me see here. All right. So, but let me go ahead and bring up longstanding friend to the show and get him up in here. Shout out to BGS. What's good with you, man?
Yo, Doc. What up?
Oh, man. Glad to have you as always, man. Had to go through I had to geek out a little bit first.
You know, I told you about the buying that sword, didn't you?
Come on, man. No, you didn't think I was gonna. I got three of them in the mail. Come on, man. I got everybody has their vice.
Yes, sir. I said you wasn't ish, sir. You know,
well, yeah. You might not be wrong. I don't drink. I don't smoke. You know, I don't do anything else. But I gotta have my swords and my comics. You know.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Gotta have a vice.
Yeah. I wouldn't recommend breaking in. That's all I'll say. Because there's some toolage up in here that is not, and that would be gruesome. Anyway, but nah, I invited you here because there was a couple things I wanted to show you and
Uh-huh.
response to and have a conversation about. This was today's show,
Mm-hmm.
one I was thinking of doing last week,
Mm-hmm.
but I had too much going on, so I ended up kind of postponing it. I did a live show, and I was contemplating doing today's show
Mm-hmm.
Thursday, the very next day after,
Yeah.
and I just said, let me just do it next week. There's too much
Yeah.
going.
That's why we invite people over here is because as sooner or later they're going to ask me to cover it. So it's best we get it over with. So
Get it over with. Yeah.
get it over with.
So today, I want us to deal with this Mark Anthony Neal interview on NPR. I
Okay.
think it was. I want to go through that. And for those who don't know, Mark Anthony Neal is a very popular Black feminist professor.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually his book was the first book I used when I started my Black male class. But you got to remember, this was before we developed Black male studies. This was before I met Tommy Curry and a number of the other brothers, Dr. Neal.
Mm-hmm.
I met you. I think this might have been 2010, somewhere around 2010. So I was looking for Black male books, for this class, and I just didn't find anything I was happy with. Most
Mm-hmm.
of them overly catered to women. Most of them, really kind of conceded the point that Black men were monsters, and
Mm-hmm.
so this was kind of in that era. So I have no, particular animosity for the brother. I just disagree with a number of his positions. But I wanted to talk through this interview. But before we get to that, there is something else that I wanted to kind of have a short discussion on. I'm not going to try to spend a whole lot of time with this, but this one has gone all over the
Mm-hmm.
internet. Everybody has, kind of had something to say about it. I talked about it.
I miss his wig though.
Oh shit.
He used to have a blonde wig. I miss his wig.
Mm. Well, it's kind of still there, but anyway.
Yeah. I see why he used to wear a wig though.
Well, I try not to attack people on that level. It's just, but I gotta admit, this was what as a matter of fact, Tommy actually said it first, but I completely agree with him. This is hate speech.
Yeah,
This
it
is
is.
hate speech.
It is. It's hate speech when we say it. It's not
Exactly.
hate speech when they say it.
Yeah. He's gotten all kinds of support for these statements,
Mm-hmm.
particularly to the group. And he says who he's
Mm-hmm.
advocating for. He's trying to pull homosexuals, trans, and Black women together as a unit. He's actually trying to reconnect them.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of subtly acknowledged some fissures in the relationship that some of us may not have known have been growing. And he's trying to basically pull those groups back together again.
Well, why don't Black women just date trans and homosexuals and be done with it?
Some of them have been. I mean, what do they call them? They're not gray marriage. I forget what they called them. There was a term.
Oh yeah, there was. It wasn't gray. It was something. It
It was
was.
something. No,
Yeah, it was. No, it wasn't violet. It was something.
it
Some
was,
color.
it was purple. It was, but it was some kind of.
It's got some color. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like they were marrying, but obviously not. For sex. It was just.
Lavender. It's
Oh,
lavender
it
marriage.
was? It was lavender.
Lavender marriage. Yes.
Okay, yeah. So they
Hmm.
were doing it. I think that was gay men. I don't know if it was trans.
No, it was gay men and so-called heterosexual women marrying. They call it lavender marriage. Yep.
And see, my thing is, if you're going to do what you're going to do it. But the moment you start castigating
Hmm.
whole demographics, particularly of
Hmm.
Black men, and calling people cancers, then that's when I have a problem with that. What you do in your room or in your house, I don't particularly care.
Yeah.
But this is different. So I'm going to play this, and we'll have a brief discussion about it, and then we'll jump into Mark Anthony Neal. So let's see. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, it has now come to the time that we have a conversation. I've been saying for years on this show that Black men need to have a conversation. Black men alone. We have got to figure out what is going on with us. This is not something that Black women can help us with. This conversation does not include Black women. Black women stand down and stand to the side. Black men need to have a kumbaya amongst themselves, and I'm gonna niche this out a little more. And it's heterosexual Black men. I'm gonna catch a lot of flack for this, but I'm gonna say it out loud.
It is a little low.
Chest. Straight black men are the cancer. You said the volume is low?
Yes.
Mm,
If you can't do anything about it, you can't do anything about it.
you know what? I know what to do about it. You want me to do? Was it low the whole time? You couldn't hear it?
It's audible, but barely audible.
All right, I'll back up a little bit. Tell me if this is better. Is that better?
A tiny bit.
Okay. Let me see, because that's as high as I can get it.
Well, we'll have to suffer through it. So.
All right, here we go. Uh-oh.
Okay. Off, yeah.
There we go.
Mm-hmm. Ladies and gentlemen, it has now come to the time that we have a conversation. I've been saying for years on this show that black men need to have a conversation. Black men alone. We have got to figure out what is going on with us. This is not something that black women can help us with. This conversation does not include black women. Black women stand down and stand to the side. Black men need to have a kumbaya amongst themselves, and I'm going to niche this out a little more. And it's heterosexual black men. I'm going to catch a lot of flack for this, but I'm going to say it out loud with my whole chest. Straight black men are the cancer of the black community. That's where it starts and that's where it stops. Ladies, I'm here to tell y'all something. All this shit that y'all got going on, some of y'all, not all of y'all, with the gays and with the trans, let it go. Your issue is not a trans woman. Your issue is not a punk or not a sissy. Your issue is all of our issues. Straight black men. Straight black men are the enemy to the gays. Straight black men are the enemy to the trans. Straight black men are who are causing harm to the girls and the women. That's where it's at. Now y'all can shoot the messenger. Y'all can call me all type of faggots on the Shade Room and all the other blog sites. That's gonna pick this up and I'll eat it. But you'll never see a situation where girls and women walking around saying they scared of the gay boys. They scared of their life for the gay boys. They don't want to be around the gay boys. It ain't us going around with these fragile ass egos, can't take rejection. We've got to ask ourselves, and I don't even know if the black straight male collective can even answer this question because their egos tend to be so fragile. How is it we are raising boys with these fragile ass egos that feel it is okay to slam girls on their head for saying no? Why is it that we have to make the females of the community make all the adjustments? It's not fair. Straight black men are the cancer of the black community. Argue with your mammy.
All right.
Okay. You know what? And I actually investigated because I know he's talking about that 14-year-old boy that body slammed a Latino girl. Because the girl body slam was not black. Okay, she's Latina. Okay. And if you listen to his mother, okay, these are classmates. Okay, he wasn't asking for a number. These are classmates. Okay. And according to the mother, she had been using racial slurs against this particular boy for months. So it was not he slammed her because of rejection. Okay, he slammed her is because they've had an ongoing dispute. Now I'm not condoning him body slamming this little small female onto the ground as big as he was and then stomping on her head. Okay, that was unnecessary. I think he should pay for that. The thing is, they keep saying that he asked for a number, and it's not true. In fact, the New York Post there was a interview. The New York Post, it was his mother. She said, "No, this is an ongoing thing between that 15-year-old girl and the 14-year-old boy because they've been in class and she's been at the school trying to get this Latina girl to stop calling him the N-word and other kind of slurs." Okay, and I'm not proud of how he reacted to it. Okay, but the thing is, they keep saying that it is because she wouldn't give him her number, even though they've been on they've been on Instagram and all that kind of crap together.
Okay.
Okay. So.
That this interesting though, but I've been saying this for the longest. You can't, for the last damn near 20 years, keep telling boys and girls via media that
they're equal.
They're the same strength. Women are smarter. Women are more capable. Women will kick you through walls, even though she's 2 feet shorter than you.
Yeah.
You can't put that propaganda out there for a couple of decades and then be surprised when young men treat them like they're the physical threat they claim they are. This is going to happen.
Yeah, it's going to happen. Yeah. They're creating the monsters that they can't claim to be afraid of.
Yeah, I mean, there used to be a period where you saw in the media boys were being socialized to rescue and help girls. But you spent we can take it back to the 70s, really. You spent this much time telling boys they're not necessary. Girls don't need to be rescued. Girls are strong. They're capable. They're just as strong as men, so on and so forth. You can't propagate that rhetoric and be surprised at the effect.
If she was throwing around racial slurs, she couldn't have been that afraid of him.
Well, yeah.
In my opinion. Yeah.
But the whole idea, like you said, that he was trying to get her number, he got upset when he couldn't take it,
Yeah.
That's not what happened.
It's not what happened. That's what I'm saying. That's why, because we've raised sons, okay? And we know that if say heaven forbid that our son would actually do something like that, we would know with that kind of violence, it was much more than he couldn't get her number.
Right. But part of the problem, and this is what happens in social media, you take one incident and then people make generalizations about an entire group based off of that. And, this is just, part of the part of the discussion, but unfortunately some people really push it to an unnecessary.
Well, the thing is, people say chivalry is dead, but chivalry goes for both ways, okay? A woman is supposed to be a ladylike and nice and petite. That's how she gets protected. Okay, if she's gonna call names and point fingers in your face, chivalry goes out the window. You're a man then. Yeah. So women forget the other half of chivalry. Okay, you have a responsibility to actually uphold chivalry.
Well, they forget the other half of chivalry, and they also forget the other half of traditionalism. What they've turned both of them into is unlimited service from men and silence.
Yes.
You're supposed to fall on your sword. You're supposed to sacrifice your life. You're supposed to risk your life at every turn, because they've really kind of mutated these ideas, chivalry and traditional relationships.
Yeah.
And they've turned it into, and they've taught young boys from an early age that what those ideas mean is that you serve women at every turn.
At every turn.
That has never been what those concepts referred to. They referred to an exchange.
Yeah.
There was an exchange of resources between women and men. This idea that women sat back and didn't do anything is not accurate.
It's not accurate. Yeah.
Never has been, and especially in the Black community, you're referring to chivalry from women. One way that took shape was deciding what you were going to tell your father and brothers, because you knew if you told them one thing, they might end up in jail. They might end up dead. Women knew they had a responsibility for what they shared. I mean, if we go back to Maya Angelou, what happened?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not saying she shouldn't have shared that she was, touched by an older man.
Yeah, she was violated. She wasn't just, it was
there you
more
go.
That. Yeah.
And I'm not saying she shouldn't have shared that, but once she shared it and he disappeared, she herself was shocked.
Yeah.
That her word could send someone to the other side.
Yeah.
That is a lot of power to give women. And even though I think she was a little girl when that happened,
she wrote a book about it.
Yeah, but I'm not saying there's anything wrong with what she did. What I am saying is women understood that they had a responsibility about what to share, because the repercussions were serious. Somebody could die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they took that seriously in terms of that. And that was part of the chivalrous responsibility from women. It was, okay, if I tell this man this happened, these are the things that could happen. So women had to weigh the situation.
Yeah, because that's how family feuds get started. Okay, you say something and you sick your menfolk on one of mine. Okay, and it's found out that it was unwarranted. It's going to come back at you.
Yeah. And if you're living in the era of outright lynching, being irresponsible with your mouth, with Black men's lives, that could lead to lynchings, that could lead to whole families being slaughtered. There was a lot of responsibility there, and there was a time where I believe Black women did understand that a little more. Now it's turned into a flex. And I remember this as a kid. I remember the girls that would say, "I'm gonna get my brother to beat you up." I remember that. But when you're talking about grown women that are getting in arguments at drive-thrus, talking about, "I'm gonna have my brother come back and shoot up
the place." Yeah,
that's a whole different level. this is why we talk about pit bullying, because it's gotten to be a flex
Mm-hmm.
where for a lot of women, they enjoy the power of being able to send somebody to do something.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm calling for Black men to, regain your humanity. You decide, and you've told this story before. I think you said with your daughter,
Yep.
you had to check her about using you
Yes.
as a pit bull. Can you, if you're willing to, can you share that?
Okay. This is now I've stood in before without violence. Okay. But there's one particular time. Okay. She's dated. She had broken up with her high school boyfriend, and they reconnected. Okay. And so she's over his house, and she gets on the phone. Goes to his phone and gets one of the numbers of a girl he has been seeing over the past couple of months, right? Okay, and so she decided she's gonna take it upon herself and call the girl because she don't think the girl knows where he lives. Okay, so she calls him and they go back and forth, and she threatened, she challenged the girl to a fight, and not thinking that the girl's gonna show with backup. Okay, and then the girl showed up with backup.
Mm-hmm.
And the fight didn't go the way she thought it was going to go. So I get a call. I said I get a call that her boyfriend we supposed to go after her boyfriend is because she got into a fight with one of his girlfriends. Okay.
Mm.
So I said before I do something where I'm actually going to go to jail, okay, put her on the phone. And that's when the story came out that I said, so you want us to go to, so I put your mama back in the war. You want us to go to bat for her as she called for this ass whipping and she got it.
Mm.
Mm. And so I picked her up because, she fell on her head. I wanted to make sure she didn't have a concussion. I said, and so I was sitting there with her in the lobby, in the waiting room, right, waiting for her to get her get a CAT scan on her head. And I said, I'd advise you. I know you're a girl. You don't understand it, but said the last thing you want to do as a person is call for an ass whipping. You call for an ass whipping and you got it. So that should be a lesson to you. Okay, that can't happen.
Yeah.
That can't happen. I used to tell my daughter, all my kids, okay, if it's necessary, I will sit for you. Okay, I'll sit on death row for you if necessary. But I want to make sure that you are doing the right thing before I do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you'll find that there's a difference in their behavior when they know that you're going to check the situation out.
Yes.
Before you jump in. With some women, certain personality types, the fact that you're going to run in gun in hand, weapon in hand, and just do whatever they say, they enjoy the flex of that.
Yes.
But a man that walks in calmly, reviews the situation, and makes a judgment is a very different thing. That's not a weapon. That's not a pit bull. That's a man.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to measure what the situation requires and respond accordingly.
Yes.
See, that's when you're not being used. And that's when what you end up doing is you end up forcing the women in your care to take responsibility for when you're called and for what.
And for what? Yeah. Because I used to tell my girlfriends, okay, I'm gonna get such and such on you. And said, don't have me looking for your brother or your father or something like that, because I got guns too. If I know he's looking for me, I'm gonna get him first.
Yeah, and how many situations get completely out of hand?
Get out of hand. They can't get out of hand. In situations that are completely caused by them. That's why I always say, before I check him, I want to make sure that I check you first.
Yeah. If this is an ego flex, if this is something that's, this is not going to go the way you want it to.
It's not going to go where you want to. And the thing is, if it's going to come to that, okay, then you don't need to be with him. You only get one time with me, with that man. Okay, if that man puts hands on you and we resolve it, okay, you need to leave that guy. Okay, because the next time he puts hands on you, that's on you.
And I want to differentiate between a woman that not only respects you, but is very conscientious about when she calls for your aid. That's a very different thing. A lot of these cases I'm seeing are very irresponsible, disrespectful women that are flexing on other people and using men to do it.
Yeah, they're trying to check that particular man that they're doing what they want to do.
Yeah. It's it's a form of proxy violence, but it's often done in a way where there's no care for you. In other words, you can get shot, you can get killed, you can get locked up, and the people that depend on you suffer as well. I mean, going back to you, if you were irresponsible with this and you went in guns blazing, even if you didn't pass, like if you did pass, think about the cost that, all of us who've learned from what you've contributed over the years, we would have missed all of that.
Yeah.
Your children, your other children would have missed your presence. And that's even if you'd lived and been locked up. I mean, all of that is a severe disrespect to the men that they call in. They don't value you. You're a tool, you're a weapon, and those kind of things need to be called into question.
Right.
But taking the conversation back to this gentleman here, my issue is that he's dehumanizing and objectifying a whole population of men. Right? And he's taken a particular stance that rallies back to a period where it was financially and career benefiting, right, to denigrate straight black men. Now, I think the politics of that are changing, but these people right now are going back to what has worked in the past. Black men don't deserve respect. They're not really human. You can talk about them any kind of way, and for a good period of time, talking about them in the right way or the wrong way, as it were, will advance your career, advance your standing. And notice who he calls together to do it: gay men, trans women, and black women.
Birds of a feather. So
that's that grouping right there.
Because they all, what's the common denominator? They date men.
Yeah. Well, and the other common denominator is they all worship womanhood, right? This is one of the reasons I've argued for years that black women have been highly supportive of gay men and trans women. You don't really hear black women talk a lot about trans men, for example, because trans men, they don't.
That's a small population,
small population. But when it comes to gay men and trans men, this is all self-worship. I mean, what are gay men? I mean, from even behaviorally. Now, this is not all gay men. There are gay men that you wouldn't know were gay that carry themselves in a variety of ways. Yeah. But the gay men we most see in popular culture are highly effeminate. And in a way, that's a kind of worship of black womanhood. They like that. It's egoic. It's self-affirming. They dig that. And trans women are the ultimate. Right? Trans women, look to emulate black women at every turn. Matter of fact, it's become a back and forth kind of dynamic.
The funny thing is,
let me just say this: black women's makeup didn't look like this shit.
No. Basically, there was a young lady I did a seminar with, right, and she's the one that got Boys in the Hood made. Okay. She's actually the one that hooked them up with the producer to get Boys in the Hood made, right? And she was telling me that back in the late 80s and 90s, okay, it was the trans women, or the so-called, we used to call them cross dressers, right? Okay, they're the ones that actually did the makeup. Yeah, that's how come that all the fancy makeup that you see now that came from them.
Yep.
So basically, our women might as well be trans, okay, because they act like them.
You know what's funny though? Before we jump into this interview, one thing he said that really kind of intrigued me. He said he was talking to black women, and he said, your problem has never been with us. You're not afraid of us. That whole kind of approach to it. And I was like, it's interesting how y'all pick and choose how to break that down. Because remember, from the 1990s forward, black women were talking about men who were on the down low.
Right.
And they were talking about the rates of HIV, which have always been highest in the MSM category, men who have sex with men.
That's where it started. Yeah.
Yeah. So that being, and it's still to this day, those are the highest numbers in the black community as far as transmissions of HIV. So it's interesting how you can disclaim men on the down low and then claim when convenient. But at the end of the day, when you make the statement that your problem has never been with us, I'm like, no, they've had problems with y'all. It ain't.
It's not the same problems, okay?
But I mean, in terms of this issue of transmission, no, they were actually, the issue was men who were having sex with men, and somehow that became something attributed to straight men. When you look at the stats, that's not what it ends up being. But that aside, this kind of hate speech altogether is something that we have to call out. We have to challenge. We have to, openly dismiss. because at the end of the day, this has gone on for the longest. But I know why it happens, because it's always been profitable.
Yes.
And it's only in the last year and a half that it's a question mark now as to how profitable it is. And this is something you can speak to with a lot of detail. This whole question of what Trump has been doing with DEI,
Right.
you know, what's been, you know, what people are able to talk about, what kind of career advancement takes place. The rules have been changing in the last year and a half.
Yes.
As it relates to these old practices of misandry. Talk about, if you wouldn't mind, what's changed and whether or not these old strategies are going to continue to work into the future.
If they can't, it's because in fact, they said the United States has about 5 years before China completely takes over. Okay, as far as leadership. Okay, and the thing is that the reason they can't compete with China is because we don't have infrastructure. Okay. We've taken, you came up, most of the trade schools, stuff like that, and the trade programs have been taken out of the schools, taken out of the educational system, and been replaced by service jobs, which are more female oriented. Well, I'm not, there's nothing wrong with it, but thing is we've gone to a service based economy. Okay, but thing is, we don't have bullet trains. We don't have bridges. We don't have nuclear plants that we need. We don't have a whole bunch of stuff that we need, right? All that stuff, our roads are falling apart, okay? Our factories are going dark. It's because we're not, innovating. And the thing is that women don't innovate. They don't innovate. They don't build infrastructure. Women at best maintain. That's the best they can do, okay? And if you want to keep competing and not go extinct, what you're gonna have to do is reinvest in boys. So the thing is, money, especially in America right now, it's a zero-sum game. Okay, we're in debt, and so money is tight. So what you're gonna have to do is you have to take money from the females. You're gonna have to give it to the males. So DEI and stuff like that. It's not gonna be stripped all the way back to 1960, I think 65, which is the Voting Rights Act. All the because all the enforcement is presidential signings, executive orders, right? So he stripped, which he has a right to do. He stripped all those away. Okay.
Shout out to Jeff. Says about to address it in 20 minutes. What's good with you, man?
All right, Jeff. Yep.
MS Delta. Much appreciation for that generous donation. How you doing, man?
That's the spook that sits by the door. So.
But no, so what you're describing is a shifting economy and people still trying to push the old buttons, hoping that it'll generate what it used to.
Yeah, the thing is something I learned. Especially during the housing crisis. Okay, you would see people that there's so many houses in foreclosure, right? So it took like 19 to 20 months to actually be foreclosed upon, not 90 days, right? And you would think that they had, they're not paying a mortgage, they're not paying rent, and they got 20 months to figure things out, right? Why is it when the sheriff comes and forecloses on the house, all the furniture and all the clothes are still there 20 months later?
Okay.
Because people get frozen in space, hoping that it'll work out until consequences actually hit them.
Okay.
So basically, you're going to have women that women or even people still pushing the same button, hoping that by some miracle the button will work until they crash.
Okay.
In fact, I was looking at CGA. He said he's saying the same thing, right? Y'all gonna have to let them fail. Stop holding them up. In other words, yeah, he says stop putting that net underneath them. Okay.
Yeah, and that's all they've known. They've always had a safety net. Black men have never had a safety net. Matter of fact, it's not even an expectation that the average black man has.
Yeah.
We don't walk out into the world expecting a safety net.
You got ask your brother. You got to give me your email, man, because I don't have your email.
Okay.
So, if you can do it, get it through Doc, or you can or send it or put it. I think I have you on Twitter, so I'm not sure, but you got to give me your email. But go ahead, Doc.
All right, no, man. I'm gonna start this up.
Okay.
Let me see here.
Yeah. The thing is, and this is something that you're talking about as far as the gynocracy. Gynocracy is funded by white dollars. Okay. And it's funded by basically the modern gynocracy is actually funded by white female dollars
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
they cover. Okay, what happens when the white females don't have the money to actually support them anymore?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When those resources shift, I mean, you're talking about, you're trying to tap dance to get the same monies you've always gotten, but
Mhm.
there are tectonic plates moving beneath your feet in ways that you're not paying attention to, and you're not going to be able to keep your balance in this shifting moment.
I mean, I'm sure you can see this in academia. It's not fast, but there's a slow shift back to the importance of males on campus. It's very slow, but you can start to see it.
Shout out to Passport OG. What's good with you, man? Hoping you good, man. Just did a show at on the beach on I don't know if it was sunrise or sunset, but
Okay.
Shout out to the brother.
But it was on the beach though.
He was on the beach, man. He's doing his thing. But this is an NPR interview with Mark Anthony Neal, and he's talking about this question of Black male mental health. And this is also in regard to, the recent killings that we've seen in the news. This is in response to, I think, Justin Fairfax. This is dated. This came out a week ago. Because I was going to initially cover it. I think it came out the day I was going to cover it, but we ended up having a whole discussion, so I kind of pushed it back. But so this is a week old, and I think much of it is in response to what we've been seeing in the news, and he calls it, this mental health crisis, a patriarchy crisis, or both.
Yeah.
And we can check out where he takes this argument from here. Now, I keep things at 1.5 speed. Let me know if it's too fast.
Try 1.25 if you can. I know. Yeah, but when you broadcast, 1.25 is about the right speed.
Part of it is because I didn't listen to these a few times, and
you're used to it. Like Ed listens at 2x. Okay, but the thing is, that's fine when you're listening. The things for the audience, they need to, like 1.25 is probably optimal.
Let me see here. Now let me see if I can cut through the introduction.
No, I'm Gene Dumby.
Gene, I know you and I talk a lot about the ways that race and gender.
Hold on, let me just find it.
Shape how people behave in the world. Louisiana.
Yeah, Parker, I did. So
I don't know if I think I missed the intro.
Hey everyone, you're listening to Code Switch. I'm B.A. Parker.
And I'm Gene Dumby.
Gene, I know you and I talk a lot about the ways that race and gender interact to shape how people behave in the world. And I've been thinking about that a lot these past few weeks because of some of the really...
Hey man, I hope I didn't bring up the wrong one.
Power, but it's not a real power, right? We are more mournful.
To stop here for a lot of reasons.
It's worth pointing out that all
lawful mutilation.
Damn, my apologies. I usually time these things, but...
How long is it?
The whole thing is about 38 minutes, so...
Okay. Just 1.25, just let it play through.
The murder of a teenage girl, as well as continuous sexual abuse of a child younger than 14, and the unlawful mutilation of human remains. And honestly, the list goes on, but we have to stop here for a lot of reasons.
It's worth pointing out that all the perpetrators in these incidents were Black men, and they were reportedly dealing with mental health issues. And a lot of the media reaction that I've seen, I don't know if you've seen this, Parker, has been about the mental health crisis among men, especially Black men. That feels too simple or pat for the sort of scope of what's happening.
True, especially when recent studies show that Black women are 6 times more likely to be killed than their white counterparts. So I wanted to speak to someone who could break down a little more of what he thinks is going on.
We are more mournful of the possibilities that are lost for these men. We're more concerned with mourning them than we are mourning the victims of the choices that they made.
That's Mark Anthony Neal. He's a friend of the show and a professor at Duke University who studies Black masculinity.
Just looking at the full palette of how Black men show up in the world.
That's just hovering over you all day, all the time?
Yes, I mean, part of it is because I've been living in this Black male body for 60 years.
Yeah.
So I feel like I have some insight on what it means.
That's fair.
But yes, it's I have to frame the world that I'm in, not just in terms of who I am, in terms of my race, but also in terms of my gender.
And I wanted to talk to Mark about all of this recent tragedy and what it says about Black masculinity right now.
I'm very intrigued. Take it away, Parker. This message comes from Progressive Insurance. You're listening to this podcast, so you've got a curious mind. Did you know that drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average? Visit progressive.com and get a quick quote with disc savings of $946.
This message comes from Warby Parker, prescription eyewear that's expertly including prescription lenses. Be honest. Are you happy with your job? Are you or never want benefits of having a dedicated?
Mark Anthony Neal told me that hearing about all this violence over the course of the past few weeks had him feeling like we need to start a collective conversation, asking,
what's happening in the world? I mean, we ask that question every day.
Yeah.
Because there's so much craziness going on. But, this is something that, at least for me, had to bubble up to a priority in terms of thinking and processing what this violence against women mean.
Yeah. Okay. You talk about that conversation. What does that conversation look like?
I think it's important to think about your introduction of Serena Fairfax and leading with her, that we need to lead with the victims of the violence. And, there seemed to be this desire almost immediately to create a context for the violence, whether it was mental illness, dude just lost his mind for a moment. I needed to sit with the idea that in these cases, there were children that lost their lives, there were wives that lost their lives. Whatever choices Mr. Fairfax made or the guy in Louisiana made, we have to sit with the violence against those women and children first.
Okay, so first out the gate, right? This idea that too much of the attention went to the shooter and not enough attention to the victims. Your thoughts about whether or not that's happening? What do you think about that?
I think that's very common. I mean, when you have a mass, like the guy in Vegas that killed like 60 people, okay? Why is the focus on him? It's because you're trying to prevent another person from doing the same thing.
But I think the idea is somehow that black men are privileged, and this is kind of the undertone. We're privileged in that we take up the majority of the conversation when it's a black man that's taking lives, and that this needs to stop and the attention needs to go to the victim. And it almost puts the onus of this on black men, as if we somehow control the media discussion and we have somehow demanded to be foregrounded even when one of us has committed some extreme atrocity during a mental health crisis.
And they may not be talking to black women or black men. I think that what they're talking to is their superiors, which is white women and white male liberals.
You don't want in terms of where the attention goes?
Where the attention goes, yeah.
But this is tied to what's been going on in the academy. I mean, the idea is that black men have been getting too much attention, period. This argument has been going on for the last couple decades, and it's that we're privileged. It comes from that privileged discourse.
In other words, who is giving the attention to these black men? It's not the black community. Okay, it's white liberal media is giving attention to these black men. They're not talking to us; they're talking to them. It's because I say black women are emotionally masochistic. They don't want to be they want to be the top victim.
No, they do want to be the top victim, but the animosity, like you'll notice, he never names the networks.
Yes.
The animosity is directed toward black men, even though we don't control any of those mechanisms. What black man do you know is out here talking about, I don't want to hear about the Fairfax woman. I just want to hear about the husband.
They don't. They don't. That's how come I know they're not talking to us.
No, they're not directly talking to us. The animosity is directed toward us.
They're blaming us. Okay. In other words, it's always Jermaine's fault, right?
Even over things we don't
even over things that you don't control. Some guy flips out and kills his wife. Okay, happens every day. Okay, white, black, Latino, whatever, all over the world. Okay,
but
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, but the thing is, they want pity from the people that are controlling the media. We're not those people.
But see, this is the reason why I started with Funky Deneva. I don't know how to pronounce the name.
Right.
Because it's really the same thing.
Yes.
What you have happening is they're pushing the old buttons that used to secure the same resources they were used to getting.
Exactly.
And it's like a what do you call those? Those soda machines where you put in a couple of coins and you get out your drink or your chips. Where it's not giving them the same treats that they're used to getting.
Yeah, right.
It's starting to shift.
Like Funky Neva is talking, is talking to black women. Number one, black women. Okay. Oh, so that the trans and the gays don't get blamed, and then number two, black men. Now he is talking about us, right? But thing is that when I was listening to him, that we need to have a conversation, right? Because I've heard that more than once. Okay, the black manosphere is having this conversation, okay, but you don't like what we're saying.
Well, it's not manicured and it's not controlled.
It's not controlled. It's not curated, as they say. That's the new word.
By any major institution,
right?
You know, because they wanted this. If black men did have a conversation, they wanted it to come through like the academy, where it could be controlled and curated, as you said, and so on and so forth. It didn't come through the academy.
Right.
It came from the grassroots. You know, anybody that had a cell phone, a laptop, a computer could join the conversation. That is a level of participation that most elite industries fear.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want that. The grassroots everyday person being able to weigh in on the issues of the day, that's the last thing they wanted.
Yeah. They want black men to self pit bull, as they say.
Oh, please. Well, they're actually, people are starting to hear what black men are exchanging with one another, and it's frustrating because it's not a controlled discourse.
It's not a controlled discourse. Yeah, that's exactly. And and the thing is that we and black men are not just exchanging ideas and circumstances, but they're also exchanging stats and knowledge and studies and all, and actually reading, which most black people don't do, reading and actually define the narratives and the myths. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
How do you explain this, that black women are actually killing more black men than white men are killing white women? How do you explain that?
Mm-hmm.
How do you explain that black women are 4 times more violent toward their men than white men were toward their spouses? Okay. A lot of stats they pull out are curated.
But and those kinds of stats were never supposed to be released. I never heard that. I never heard them until I actually started doing the numbers myself.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because I remember years ago, the first time I discovered that black women were killing black men in larger numbers than rate-wise than white women were killing white. I had to go do the numbers, and I shared it with a few colleagues, and we were all like, at first, going, "This can't be right," because we never heard it. But we only heard the narratives through feminist sources, so they only gave us what served their political interests.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as long as the conversation remained in the academy, that was all you were going to ever hear. As a matter of fact, Mark Anthony Neal represents that discourse, that period of time, because they're early on. I'd say in the late what they call it, the late aughts, before 2010.
Yeah.
What you had happening is you had black feminists that were trying to start the conversation about black men, but they wanted to do it under their auspices. So they were writing books about progressive masculinities, and they were cherry picking which men should speak on it. Mark Anthony Neal was one of those men. There was a whole little collective of feminist men that were supposed to pick up the torch and run with the conversation about black men from a black feminist standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
That was what was supposed to happen.
It picked the pastor of the church. Huh?
Well, yeah, that was precisely it. The women of the church picked the pastors and the deacons and so on and so forth. The problem is you had the rise of social media. Right?
Yeah.
The rise of social media was not something most people could predict.
No.
And the next thing you know, you had grassroots level men, some educated, some not, some self-taught, some from overseas. You had men forming collectives, having conversations that were not being supervised
or by the gatekeepers.
Yes, absolutely. That's why you have the quote unquote unwashed masses having conversations about black manhood that were not supposed to be held in the public. And then, and I think you've talked about this, by the time we get to COVID, now you have a major shift towards social media in a way that was unprecedented because everybody's stuck at home.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, social media now it's going through the roof. You got individual podcasters that are doing higher numbers than CNN.
Exactly. Yeah. We one of our colleagues was one of those people. Yeah.
There you go. So now all of a sudden, these same unwashed masses now have the world's attention, and it's and unlike corporate media, It's not Thursday night at 8:00. It's 24 hours a day. You got guys broadcasting in their car, broadcasting at the drop of a dime. This is unprecedented.
It's unprecedented. If you get enough numbers of these people doing that, okay, it actually moves the news cycle. There's one thing I can say about ADOS, the ADOS collection, right? Okay, they didn't have money, they didn't have any political backers, but things that social media actually started to move the political and the news cycle because there was enough of them. But it's possible, and I think the Black Manosphere has demonstrated that you really can with limited numbers, as long as you have that the critical mass. Let's put it that way. Okay, can influence the conversation.
Yeah. I mean, look at the dynamics of it. It's free. So unlike cable, you're not paying, I think one of my last cable bills was like $360.
Man, cable's going, it's gotten ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. So most of this is free discourse. It's 24 hours a day. And the funny thing, this just as an aside, I think it's funny. I have people reach out to me and I don't want it, I want you to do this. I don't want you to talk about that. I'm paying good money. And I'm like, no, you're not, sir.
You're not.
This is free.
They're not paying Dr. T what he's actually worth. Okay, you know that. I told you, you're well underpaid. Even what you make, what you make now, you're well underpaid. Okay,
but at the end of the day, it's 24 hours a day of free content that people are producing, and so you're going to tell me that politicians aren't listening? You're going to tell me that celebrities aren't listening? You're going to tell me that people who are in positions to do things that regular folk are not? I've had politicians reach out to me. I've had celebrities reach out to me. It's interesting to note that you can literally pick up your phone, create a broadcast, and be heard. The first time you have somebody from the other side of the planet send you a message and say, "Wow, thank you," or even I hate what you said, I disagree. You're like, wait a minute.
How'd you find me? Yeah.
You're in South Africa. You didn't like what I said and wrote.
I mean, when you see the Chinese Kevin Samuels coming from China, that tells you the impact. Okay, there's three major things that happen that cause.
We're kind of losing you. Your mic is out.
Can you hear me?
Your mic went out.
Oh, did it? Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. There's three. They probably don't want to hear what I got to say, but it's okay. There's three major things that happen, according to my estimation, that happened, right? First thing was COVID, okay? They had people stay home, and their only lifeline was social media, okay? The second thing was the Ukraine war.
Okay.
Because there was a lot of propaganda about the Ukraine war spread, through the so-called white media, okay? So they actually formed an alternative lane for media. By people that had different opinions, okay, and the third thing, the biggest blow to mainstream media was actually the 2024 election, and Donald Trump discovering that social media was actually a viable way to actually get information across and actually rally people, okay.
And get votes.
And get votes. So that's why you have a lot of people that were in the mainstream media doing what? Down to social media. Starting chance, Stephen A. Smith, a whole bunch of other people that were on CNN, that are now on social media.
Shay and
yes,
they start their channels.
Yes,
and go from there.
Yeah.
It's changed the game in that respect. And so now you have to address it. But I think what you have in some of these instances is people from the old guard who were supposed to be the front runners in key conversations are kind of being trotted back out, but it doesn't work that way.
Yeah. People are shocked that, thank God for the brother, that, Dr. Neal was actually the inspiration for the ice cube effect that affected two elections that I know of. one in Atlanta, which is Stacey Abrams running for governor, and here in Los Angeles with what's her name, Karen Bass running for mayor. Okay. Now,
Mhm.
Karen Bass was able to overcome it and still win, but Stacey Abrams, blamed the Ice Cube effect and black men on her losing, and that carried right into 2024.
Mm-hmm. And both she and Kamala did a last second gesture at black men.
Yes.
With a bullshit list of options that were supposed to seduce us into voting.
Right.
And nobody wanted to talk about the quality of the offers.
Yeah.
What I noticed amongst feminists was how dare these black men not support her, and she gave them these options. Now, first of all, the options were weak. I've talked about this on shows at the time, but beyond that, black men actually did vote the way feminists wanted them to.
They voted for Democrats, as they traditionally have.
Yeah, the majority of black men who did vote. Now, the real question is how many didn't. But for those who did, they voted the way feminists wanted them to. And it's still, and what I think they're discovering, and this is what I call a black masculinist turn, what they're discovering is that even when you do what you're asked to do, what do you get for it?
Yes.
The very first statement I heard black feminists make after Trump was elected was that black men cost Kamala the election.
Yes.
This was before any of the data had come out. Immediately, black men were blamed.
Of course, it's always Jermaine's fault.
So it's so I think, but and then when the data came out to show that we actually did vote the way we were, was there any kind of widespread apology, acknowledgement? There was none of that. It was silence.
The silence, yeah.
So I think what you had is a moment where black men are like, you know what, even if I'm not online, I don't know what the manosphere is, I don't know what this is, a red pill or any of that. What do I get for this?
Yes, yeah, return on investment, yeah, which it was starting to make its rounds around the manosphere. ROI,
yeah. So here we go. We're back to Mark Anthony Neal.
And I think too often, because he was a prominent black man, and we're overly protective, I think, as a community, as a culture, about what befalls prominent black men, right?
You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You see?
Yeah.
He may be talking to industries, but notice how the finger gets outwardly pointed at black men.
Oh, you gotta have a villain, right?
This is ridiculous. Here we go.
Because somehow we think that protecting and creating a context to understand them, it's more of a benefit to our community, to the race. I think in leading with that, we miss fundamental issues around violence against women, the role of patriarchy and misogyny and sexism in our lives, and how violence against black women becomes an afterthought. I think about, for instance, in a separate space, when we see young white women who are killed by folks who are immigrants, and how that bubbles up to a national conversation because it's connected to this larger discourse about immigration in the country. We rarely see violence against black women bubble up to that level of conversation. And so I was happy to see, and happy is probably the wrong word, the number of black women scholars and journalists, some of them that I knew, who spoke back very forcefully to the framing of the story of these killings.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, you mentioned this. There's a lot of focus in these incidents around specifically the mental health of these men, sometimes more than the tragedy itself.
Mm-hmm.
You don't find that to be the appropriate response to the wake of these incidents.
A man killed his wife, and I'm talking about Fairfax in this context. How do we not lead with that conversation? That a man chose to kill his wife with his children in the home. Now, we could have a conversation about whether or not I or anybody else believes that patriarchy is a form of mental illness. If we want to have a conversation about mental illness, let's talk about the role that patriarchy plays in informing mental illness and misogyny.
Okay, BGS.
Yes.
Patriarchy is a mental illness. Now, you and I have talked about over the years, and you've done this with Green Gorilla, and you've done this by yourself, the conversation about historical patriarchy.
Right.
Now it's being reframed as a mental illness. So you've had thousands of years of patriarchy, but by the time feminists get to it, especially around, after the 1970s,
right,
the concept becomes a problem that needs to be removed.
Okay.
Now what we're hearing in this conversation is that it needs to now be addressed as a form of mental illness.
Right.
Tell me your thoughts about how this system that's thousands of years old now becomes mental illness.
I think is that is that they don't want to get rid of the patriarchy. They actually want the patriarchy to actually serve them. They want patriarchal submission by men, like child support, like resources and stuff like that. By what they really want is to actually fold it into the greater what I call the state gynocracy. They run gynocracy. But like I said, you have to have a boogeyman. Okay, mental illness itself, because in any culture, okay, any broader culture, you're going to have people killing each other. Okay, I'm sure it's not patriarchy that causes women to, like I just saw a white woman that had killed her 2 babies. Okay, I'm sure it's not patriarchy that has caused her to kill her 2 babies.
Well, if you're referencing the Duluth model, the argument can still be it is. Right, patriarchy doesn't have to call for the immediate presence of men. The idea that somehow these patriarchal behaviors are absorbed. I mean, it has really gotten over the years to that point where it's reached witch hunt status. Right, and I think that's partly what's happening in this conversation. It's become witch hunt status, even though it makes no sense.
It's a boogeyman, but thing is, when you try to get rid of, such as when we talked about the ERA, okay, which would have eliminated the patriarchy completely, right, by law.
Okay.
And the women then killed it, and they still will not bring it back up.
Okay.
Because they don't want to give up that privilege that the patriarchy actually gave them.
So when we hear about alimony, child support,
what
you're talking about is that's an acceptable patriarchy. That's patriarchy that's in service.
Yeah, in service. Well, like Mr. Z calls it, patriarchy with feminist specifications.
Or if we go back to pit bulling, right, there's this idea that men are going to be a greater threat, they're going to be a greater protective force, and it is okay if those men risk their lives in service to women. So some patriarchal ideas or aspects are welcome, as long as they're in service.
Yeah, as long as they're in service, okay. Which literally is what a matriarchy actually is, okay. A matriarchy as putting men in position ahead of the church is church. The modern Christian church is not a patriarchy; it's a matriarchy.
Yeah, especially in the Black community, the majority of the members of the church are women.
We're women, okay, and women have the biggest say in what the church actually does. It's actually in service of the women.
But in the last decade, especially, you've now seen churches that are trying to move past that framework to where it's all women run. I'm seeing churches that are pushing for female pastors and deacons and so on and so forth. And that is to me, it's an inevitability. It's an inevitable outgrowth of what we've been seeing for the last 50 years. But the fundamental idea about the church being predominantly run by women and with men in figurehead positions has been going on. I mean, for I can't say generations.
Hundreds of years. Okay, it's not new. Okay,
no, it's not.
It's not new. Okay. The thing is that they would love to have an all-women church. But the thing is, okay, what happens when you have all-men churches? Because it's the other dynamic.
That was one of the lures of Islam, especially when I in the early 90s, when I was young. What I started to see, particularly throughout the 90s, as a matter of fact, I used to see men moving toward the mosque. Or the masjid, they were moving, and some of them would tell you a lot of it had to do with trying to explore different types of manhood and not really being satisfied with how the Christian church dealt with manhood, because it was becoming more and more about servicing women, and even pastors giving sermons that placated to women, and men were, especially men who were really fixated on scripture, found this problematic.
Yes,
and so I started to see a lot of men moving toward Islam to kind of escape that kind of feminization of
Christianity. Yeah.
So anyway, okay, let me pull this back up. Here we go.
Sexism. We often talk about the ways in which racism, for instance, is a public health crisis, right? Anti-Black racism is a public health crisis, right? When do we talk about violence against women and misogyny and patriarchy as a mental health crisis also? And I'm not necessarily trying to go there, right? I'm just saying for those folks who want to say, well, you know, he snapped. But there also had to be something fundamentally in how these men viewed the women in their lives and the children in their lives.
Yeah.
And this is the point that Brittany Cooper made in her great piece.
Yeah.
You know, that there's a sense of ownership. I can do with you what I will.
Okay, this is a problem.
Yes.
This is a problem. You're going to take what one person did who actually suffered a severe mental break, and you could see it coming.
You see it coming.
In hindsight, when you read the articles about him leading up to it, the man went from $400,000 a year to $11,000.
Yes.
And in 1 year, and then the year after went to zero. Now, this is not a justification for what he did. It's an explanation of how he came to a mental break.
And they were going through, I do believe they were going through a divorce while living in the same house.
While living in the same house. And as far as, and when you read the evidence that he amassed in his lawsuit, it wasn't, the accusations he were given were about as plausible as the accusations we saw towards Stephon Diggs the other day.
Yes.
They were weak. There was no evidence, and he lost his entire. So to suggest that a man who suffers a mental break is somehow reflective of men who feel ownership over women is a leap that we're willing to accept as long as we've been inundated with this idea of feminism.
Yeah.
As long as it's acceptable. Go ahead.
But they don't talk about Black women when Black men date out or go overseas, okay, right, and they follow them and try to shame them into coming back into the fold. So who belongs to who?
It's acceptable then.
It's acceptable then, yeah. You know, when we get shamed for not voting, okay, did they talking to us like they actually belong to us? No, they're not. They're shaming us is because we're in charge. You know, when Obama came in and tried to shame Black men into voting for Kamala Harris, okay, they're saying that you know, you should vote for a sister because she's in charge.
Yeah.
The whole Democratic Party says have put Black women in charge of the Black community for the most part.
Right. But I want to actually go to some of the data around this before we go forward with this, because what he's doing is not only is he saying that, you know, when someone snaps, their behavior in this instance is a reflection of how men view women as owned items, owned property to do with as they will, that therefore from that, any actions they engage in are also reflective of all Black men or men. And then for those, and I've heard them say, and then whenever you have a man say, this isn't all Black men, you can tell he's just trying to protect, you know, his patriarchy or whatever. No, this is a logical, they're arguing against an illogical argument.
Yeah.
You can't apply something to all men. And then when men say this is not about all men, castigate them for suggesting that it's not all men.
But the thing is, they never talked about what you call it, a blue leash and a pit bulling.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Know, okay, if that is the case, if it's a patriarchy and men treat women like belong to opposites, how come they will actually sick their brothers and their cousins is like hired muscle, or to call the police?
Who owns who?
Who owns who?
So this is a very short blog piece I wrote, and I put the link in the chat, newblackmasculinities.wordpress.com, and it's called Are Black Men Really Abusive Monsters? And I'm just going to show you two pieces of data real quick that kind of cover this. All right, so this is the first part here. In the US in 2020, there were approximately 164 million men, 167 million women. That means 0.000013 men killed women in 2020. That's, you know, 0.0013% of all men, and 0.000012 women killed by men in 2020. That's 0.0012% of all women. So that's across race. And we go down now. These charts are interesting. These are the NVDRS violent deaths report. This is where the data is coming from, about the deaths that I'm referring to. And then here we go. This deals with black male victims of intimate partner homicide. That's what this last chart was. It says not controlling for LGBT or interracial relationships. That means 0.000017 of Black women are killed by an intimate partner via intimate partner homicide, and 0.000009 of Black men are killed by an intimate partner, and approximately 0.003% to 0.004% are involved
Mm-hmm.
in the homicide of Black women in any given year. Mind you, involved doesn't mean committed.
Mm-hmm.
This number is not about IPH and can include anything from car collisions to accidents, right?
Mm-hmm.
This means that nowhere near even 1% of men kill women, and nowhere near even 1% of women have been killed by men in the United States. The same can be said of Black men and women. So if you're gonna put forth this fiction that one man who snaps, his reaction is a statement about all men and all men's relationship to ownership of women and children, and then their that action moving even further is somehow a reflection of all men's willingness to disregard and disrespect Black female life and Black children's life. This is a fabrication, but it's a fabrication with a purpose, because the old go-to, and this is what you and I have been talking about this whole show, the old go-to resource has been to tug the heartstrings and get resources. Whether it took the form of organizations, nonprofits, or policy, the idea was the more you could convince everybody of the Duluth model, the more you could convince everybody of men's willingness to engage in patriarchy and take lives and be uncaring. All of this led to resources.
Yeah.
So the question becomes, just like I said with Funky Deneva, just like I'm saying with Mark Anthony Neal, old gesture. Old gesture that was popular in its day to denigrate Black men for advancement.
To advance, we're using us as a stepping stone, just much like BLM did. Use the stuff going on in Ferguson as a stepping stone.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then centered themselves in the discussion.
Yes. Bait and switch.
Bait and switch. Yeah.
They bait and switch the conversation. BLM would tell you a Black man died, and then when you get there, the conversation would shift to how his mother feels about it. And then all of a sudden you're hearing about women who've been killed. And suddenly all of a sudden the resources and the donations were all going to mysterious sources. And I did shows breaking down how whatever monies were donated were distributed amongst the organization. And one of the things we saw is they were very rarely distributed to chapters of BLM run by straight Black men.
Right.
Rarely, if at all. I found no evidence of it, but I'm just going to say rarely for the sake of leaving out some qualification that I haven't found yet. But my point is, this is the kind of tactic we saw run, but it's part and parcel to this same philosophical or ideological bent that Neal comes from, that Deneva comes from. It's based on a political move that had momentum and has been falling apart for years now, especially in the last year and a half.
Yeah.
Whether so they're banking on this leading to the same type of resource acquisition that it's usually led to, and we'll see if it works anymore.
Well, what happens when the credit card is runs dry?
There you go. And what happens to this idea about the Black community after these tactics have wreaked havoc? I mean, have wreaked damage all throughout the community. What then happens?
The thing is, you're going to need your men and boys to save you. What happens when they can't?
Or won't?
Or won't. Okay, well, it's become a little bit of both, but yeah.
Wait, what? You've spent years telling boys they're toxic. Now, when you add that toxicity speech to Black boys who you told weren't shit for the last few decades, what do you think what do you think comes from that?
Yeah.
I mean, we're already hearing the complaints that they don't protect, they don't do what? I mean, okay, but you've been telling them they're monsters. You've been telling them they weren't shit.
Yeah.
You've been telling them they'll never become anything. And then, of course, there was the whole trend where every male was toxic. And now you're wondering why the youth are withdrawing, especially young men.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And thing is, they didn't expect it to actually bleed over into white men.
No. And it is, and it has been. But I like to talk about Black males because I don't want us to get lost in the sauce. There was a whole campaign to denigrate Black men decades before white boys became toxic in the public imagination. And I think you have to add the two together.
And the thing is that Passport Bros was a Black male initiative. Okay. A lot of stuff, a lot of this stuff was actually Black male initiated. Okay.
Yeah.
A much like when I was young, right? Maybe 3% of black men actually married out. Okay, now it's 25. Now it's 25.
Yeah, the numbers have changed.
The numbers are accelerating.
But we used to talk about this years ago. I think back in 2019, we used to talk about how the growing manosphere is not as much causing the problems that people are complaining about. They're explaining what's already on the move, what's already coming.
Like they tell you, we're giving them language.
Yes.
To express the phenomenon.
We're giving black men the language, and men in general in the manosphere the language to explain it, but we're also explaining to the larger public inadvertently that this is what's coming.
Yeah.
We're not. It's not a matter of we are creating this. We're explaining it because it's already happening.
Yes.
But when you come to Passport Bros, the thing that's interesting about it, and we talked about this the other night, Passport Bros may have, kind of broken through to the mainstream around 2020 or so.
Yes.
But when black men, who served in World War I, World War II,
right,
started going abroad. When you start talking about black Muslim men who are dating and mating and marrying internationally, when you start talking about athletes and I'm thinking of Paul Robeson, you got figures like that are experiencing things internationally. You have intellectuals going internationally, entertainers, athletes. I mean, you name it. The more black men started to explore and spread out, Pan-Africans, I mean, you name it. There were whole segments of black men who were doing this long before it was given a name. And they came back and told stories. Now, this was often done under the table. There was a lot of under the table conversation about how they were treated by the women in question. I've told you guys for years, I used to go to conferences, and when I get a couple beers into some of my, Afrocentric brothers who are married to African women, they will start telling you stories. I done had 2 or 3 wives before I left the United States. You know what I mean? And she talked about me like a dog. My kids hated me. I'm doing everything I can, but she got custody, and she hit me up for child support and alimony. I'm barely paying for all of it. And my kids think I'm a monster because she won't let me talk to them. Then all of a sudden he came back with a wife from Uganda. Got 3 kids and is happy as hell.
Yeah.
And those were the men that I went to school under. So I started seeing that. So long before there was a named Passport Bro group, black men experimented with this for what? Over about a century?
Yeah, but they didn't have means to actually spread the word.
Exactly.
But now with social media, guess what? They can show you their daily lives with others, with foreign women, and actually show you the difference between the black women in America and foreign women elsewhere. Like I just played a video by a couple down in Panama by the Butlers, right? She was actually naming, why black women coming to Panama weren't getting their desired results.
Yeah, they calling. See how they do them. they be calling daddy. Look at them trying to get BGS on the line. Anyway, but this is what we're talking about. This has been going on for a while. Black men didn't just start, traveling, but there are reasons behind it. And in the mainstream, they want to dismiss it as black men just trying to, escape their responsibility, or they're trying to embrace their desire for white supremacy. But when you really get into the weeds of it and you actually sit down with men who have been traveling internationally, you find that what black men are often seeking is a modicum of being treated as a human being, if anything, being treated humanely based on who they are and not based on what they are, even by the women in their own community.
Yeah, I think this is the social media verbal equivalent of the belt. Okay. Trying to get the white community and women to get black men back in line. Okay, they're violent. We have 3 examples of these brothers going off, and we're not we're not pitying and taking the needs of black women basically more in consideration, and that's going to lead to now we have all these black women on the street because they don't have jobs. Brothers have to come together and actually take care of them. Is because they're the most needy and all that kind of crap. So this is the equivalent of pulling out the belt for wayward children.
This is a tactic that I think is almost it's about 60, 70 years out of date.
Yes.
I think at this point, I think this is a Loving versus Virginia era tactic.
It is, which it always backfires. Loving versus Virginia was actually supposed to help black women marry white men. Okay,
Yeah.
It didn't work that way. Okay?
But the idea at the time was that black people, but even black men, had very few resources, very few opportunities for coupling outside of the black community.
Right.
That has changed dramatically. And I think at this juncture, this type of speech, whether it be the hate speech of Deneva or the low-key academic hate speech of Mark Anthony Neal, what you're doing is just pushing black men even further out.
Further away. In other words, I think the response is coming, from the management and others. Okay, if we're that bad, we treat you that badly, having that bad experience, date somebody else.
Yeah, pretty much.
You got 4 billion men on the planet. Go date somebody else.
Because we are, and that's the other part of that.
Yes.
Black men are, as you pointed out. And see, the thing is, when you look at the numbers, when it comes to intercultural, interracial relationships, those numbers are growing. It's far from stereotype. It's not just white women, which is the popular dismissive kind of statement. But as those numbers grow, a lot of that is because the numbers are growing because the younger men don't have the same kind of ideas about racial loyalty that older men, in the black community grew up with.
Right.
They're breaking from that.
Yes.
Which means that the older these men get and the more generations of young black men we get, the more and more we see them move away.
It's because their teachers told the old black generation were toxic.
Yeah.
They were no good. They were toxic. Basically, you shouldn't be like them. And guess what? They're not. Okay. In other words, black women are actually independent, and they should be treated as such. So we don't have the same kind of loyalty towards them. Okay, you can go find other men or take care of yourself, die alone if necessary.
But you know what else adds to it too? And this was the case with my son. When you have a child, in your mind, this child is young. You try to keep them from any kind of dysfunction. But there's a point where your child grows and becomes able to interpret on their own before you're ready for it.
Right.
I remember one day my son walked up to me. I had an argument with my girl, which was a frequent thing with this particular person, right? And he walked up to me one day and he said, I heard the argument from the beginning, and let me tell you what I didn't agree with and what I didn't like. Now he pointed out everything I pointed out in the argument.
He's a man, yeah.
But it had not dawned on me that he had transitioned past this point where he went from little kid to somebody with an opinion on the matter and a pretty well-informed one. Like he gave me the logical breakdown of his. I was like, oh shit, all right.
Because he's seen that on the school ground.
Well, he's heard enough of it, But my point is, and I call them the Brownies, right? The
Brownies, the Gen Zs,
yeah. What a lot of people like to dismiss is that they grew up hearing the discussions going on in their parents and sometimes even their grandparents' relationships.
Yes,
and they had opinions about it. And one of the biggest ones my son had was, "I will never deal with this shit."
Yes,
that was my son's position, and it still is. I will never deal with this shit. The moment someone gets out of pocket with my son, is you can see the flip switch. You just see him just kind of check out before he walks out the room. And this is what young men have seen. It's not just that they came in and started chasing around every other group of women. They grew up in families.
Yeah.
With black women and looked at this and said, I'm not dealing with this shit.
They're looking at and evaluating it from a new perspective. We were actually taught that we had to put up with this stuff. Well, young guys, no, I got choice. I don't have to, because Becky and Sue Ling and Maria don't give me the same kind of feedback.
Well, even women of Afro descent from different cultures, Afro Latino, Afro Asian, there's a lot of this actually surprised me. There's a lot of passport bros that have black nationalist tendencies as far as who they date, mate, and marry.
Right.
And even if they're going to go to another country, they tend to find women of African descent in those other countries, and also with the aesthetic, you know. So I was a little, taken aback by that when I first learned about it, because it went contrary to all the stereotypes that I've heard about what black men will look for if they ever leave black women alone. What are they going to, the common thing you heard black women say is, oh, they just want white women. These cats are coming back with women darker than her, and I'm just like,
and in California, they're actually leaning toward Latina. It's not white.
I'm in Fresno. I see it every day.
Every day,
every day. And
there's enough Latinas, black men tend to lean toward Latina.
Yeah, they do. It's so contrary to the stereotype. It's not a bunch of white women. It's not. But fundamentally, what they're looking for when you actually talk to them is humane treatment. They're looking to be treated affectionately, with respect, with loyalty.
Yes,
and really, that's a lot of what they're talking about.
Yeah, they're looking for betazoids. Klingon.
They don't want Klingon. They want betazoids. Shit. You ain't shit for that. Yeah, boy. Yes, I'm tired of fighting with this one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I got to fight the world. I'm sick of coming home and having to fight with this one too. And matter of fact, I got to fight with her because it turns her on.
Yes.
So even before we get to disrespect, part and parcel, the situation is part and parcel that she's attracted to the war.
Yes.
Fighting. And I'm tired of shit. That stuff is fun for some people at a certain point, but then you reach a level of maturity where you're like, I don't want this shit.
Yeah, you don't want to walk in from a 10-hour shift, man. Walk through the door and entertain her by doing this arguing about nothing.
I used to have boys that would tell, oh man, I love makeup sex. I love arguing, and then it's better. Yeah, tell me that when you're 35 coming in from a 10-hour shift. How you feel about that then?
Yeah, tell me that when you're 22 coming in from a 10-hour shift.
you got kids who are watching this shit.
Yeah.
She waiting to fight with you.
Yeah. I mean, the first week it's fun. Okay. try the 10th week. Okay, when you have to come home every day. Okay.
Yeah, you start looking at the betazoids. They're a little different.
hey, yeah, you saw the. I don't know if you saw it where the guy was sleeping in his car.
Oh yeah.
And the young lady was coming to the car. Why are you sleeping in the car? Because I need to get some rest.
He said, I can't get any rest in there.
I can't rest in there.
Yeah. And the problem with that is so many black men identified with that. It's all right, here we go.
All right.
And in many ways, the way that story gets reported, where we are more mournful of the possibilities that are lost for these men, whether it's their own life or incarceration, right? We're more concerned with mourning them than we are mourning the victims of the choices that they make, right? And they were choices, right? They made clear-cut choices to kill people who ostensibly are close and special to them.
Now, can we talk about that for a second? The article you're referring to is by Brittany Cooper. She's a journalist and a professor of Africana Studies and Gender Studies at Rutgers University. And she wrote a piece for New York Magazine about the idea that it was the patriarchy and not just mental health issues that was responsible for the killing that happened in Shreveport. Do you find that fair or unfair to paint these incidents with a larger brush and condemn them as part of patriarchy more broadly?
It's a long, difficult conversation in the sense that we'd like to believe that the behavior, the misbehavior, the bad behavior, the deadly behavior of Black men is some sort of byproduct of what Black men experience in a racist society, where they are unfairly targeted both because they are Black, but also because they are Black men. And I think we've excused a lot of behavior in our community because of that reality. And that's not to detract from the ways in which Black men catch hell, for lack of a better way to describe it. But because Black men don't actually have access to the same kind of patriarchy that their white male peers do, both because of their whiteness and in some cases because of their class, patriarchy manifests itself in very localized ways.
Okay, so what he's saying here is that Black men act out and kill Black women because they can't be white men. This is a very old talking point. They've been using it for decades, but that's fundamentally what he's saying.
In subculture violence, they said black women used to kill black men is because black men couldn't be white men.
Oh, shit.
So which is it?
Yeah, that's where we are. Yeah. But they have to take each instance and stretch it out for as much as they can get, or like an orange, wring it out for every drop of juice they can get, as opposed to looking at it realistically. The man snapped. There's no justification for that. No black men are supporting what happened. Nobody's cheering that he did it. Nobody's suggesting that the woman should be ignored.
No.
These accusations, I have not heard not one black man stand up and say, we don't got to pay no attention to her.
Yeah, but and basically especially in the one in Louisiana, okay, that man was painted as a monster for killing 8 kids. Okay, he was not cheered or sympathized about. No, they said he need to be put down like a dog. Like a dog. Yeah. I don't know where they get it that we have to black men don't normally do that. Okay, we have to know his story. No, we don't.
But when you tell me somebody's suffering from PTSD or they had some type of mental breakdown, that is significant to me, because that automatically puts it into an uncommon category.
Yeah, I mean, you go back to Colored Girls, right? Okay, with the veteran coming back from the war and hanging his kids over the out of the window, right? Okay, this is a very old trope. Okay,
it's a very old trope. Yeah, and even in that, because I remember the first time I saw For Colored Girls, I saw it as a play.
Yes,
and I had never heard of it before. I had no context for it, and the next thing I know, these kids are dead. In the play, and I'm like, what the hell is this? You know what I mean? And I had to learn after the fact, because I really didn't understand it in the moment, that he had PTSD and he killed the kid. But they didn't present it as he had this, and there was they presented it as this is a reflection of black men.
Yeah, black men are defective, and this is part of what they do.
Right.
Which is what they're doing right here with completely different circumstances. Okay.
Exactly. This is not like, what they're trying to do is make it common. And the reality is, first of all, intimate partner homicide isn't common. Now, I'll say on a moral level, as often as it's happened, it shouldn't happen once, let alone as often as it happens. But really, in the black community, it happens a few hundred times a year for men and for women. Roughly, you might get somewhere between 350 and 450 women that die per year, and you might get about 100 to 150 fewer men. That's roughly the average year after year. And when you're talking about, a population of 40-something million, that's how common it is. Now, when you add on to it a mental health break, it's even more rare than that. And if you're talking about ex-soldiers who are having PTSD, it's even more rare than that. So to treat it like it's common, like we're arguing over who's going to wash the dishes, that's how they're trying to treat this.
Yeah.
It's as common as people arguing over household bullshit. It isn't. And this is not something that black men support simply because it happened. No, not at all.
Yeah.
But we're not going to sweep the details under the rug because it doesn't fit your politics. A mental health breakdown is significant unto itself.
Yeah. What they won't point out is the IPV rates for black men actually went down when they got away, when they stopped marrying black women. When the rates of black male death, IPV murders just went down, is when they started when the marriage rate to black women started going down. They start separating, not marrying these chicks anymore. All of a sudden, the rates dropped. You can see it.
Then there's no. We don't want to talk about that.
We don't talk about that. Okay, I pointed that out. Nobody wants to talk about that. Just like when I pointed out that black women are having 1.2 million more babies than black men sire. I want to talk about that. Okay. Oh no, don't. There's nothing to see here.
Or even across race, the extent to which women initiate violence and intimate partner violence first. And then you don't want to have those conversations. See, what they like to do is they start the conversation once a man responds.
Yeah.
And they don't treat it like he's responding to anything. They treat it like he just acted out. But when you actually begin to look at the details of the dynamic, women often initiate violence and men finally snap. Now, I'm not talking about the mental break snap, by the way. I'm talking about just in a a regular setting of when it comes to argument and so on and so forth. But nobody wants to talk about those details.
I would love to see what the race would look like if they actually included what you call pit bullying.
Oh, please.
I would love to see it. Just just get to actually just for a year, okay? Just when you actually do the race, actually look at the stats and see how much male violence is actually caused by a woman, actually a woman's brother, sister, or relative actually going actually killing or hurting the boyfriend
At her request.
at her request. Yes.
See, the hard part about that is especially if it has to do with homicide,
Mhm.
what they generally record is that one man killed another.
Mhm.
Whether he died or went to jail, one man killed another. You don't get the full narrative in the data that this was initiated by her.
Yes.
That's not part of the conversation. So women can sit back and say, "Well, look at how violent all those men are." It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
We don't have anything to do with that. They're just crazy. Word.
Yeah, that's why I would love to see a study, however limited, to see what how the violence IPV ratio would skew when you actually include pit bullying.
Well, and this is why I found it interesting when what's the name? Charleston White, I think it was.
Right. Yeah.
He did an interview where he went into a prison and he asked the men, "How many of you guys are in here because of something related to a woman?"
Mm.
And he said all hands went in the air.
The thing is, okay, the crack era would not have been as big if women had not recruited men to actually sell that dope.
I told you, I had never seen anything in media talk about Black women's relationship to the drug era until I watched the Bobby Brown movie, and his mother was the one making him sell. That was the first thing I ever saw in media that acknowledged that women played a role in the drug industry. Everything else just said this is the purview of men, and women were innocently going to school, and these niggas were selling drugs and shooting each other, and they were causing problems for women. That was the only narrative that was acceptable coming out of the 1980s.
Yeah, the Snowfall was the only series what I've seen where a woman actually is prominently right in the middle of the drug trade.
Okay, see, I never got to Snowfall. All right, so so they show it in there.
When he goes to jail, basically she's actually out there as a right hand man recruiting people and stuff like that and helping them sell the dope. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead. In fact, his uncle, which is her boyfriend, okay, is the enforcer that she controls.
Okay. Although we could go back to James Brown, we can go back to Richard Pryor, we can go back to a number of these figures and their aunties and mothers and grandmothers that participated in the drugs and the sex and the prostitution of their day.
Yeah. I remember in I think at The Wire, okay, whereas one of the dancers one of the dancers at the club of The Wire, right, that went with one of the gangsters, right, okay, she actually sent her 15-year-old son out there to actually recruit a crew to sell dope.
Yeah. You see bits and pieces of it.
Yeah.
But if you leave it up to popular media, it's one or two women.
Yeah.
The rest of it is just these crazy niggas, and women just had to endure men's craziness during the era.
Yeah, like even with this, right? There's no way that Black men. They never really said it that Black men were actually framed it as why these men actually did it. Okay, they're saying the whole country is doing it. They're not talking about just us. What they're trying to do is reframe the way we actually look at these incidents
and make it about us.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Why are you even caring about these savage Black men killing these women? The women should be at the center.
I do remember this story, Victory Status, where he talks about the Wire. The young boy was sent to, his father was in prison, and his mother
it wasn't forced. His mother was forcing him to sell dope. Okay.
I do remember that. But again, when you looked at the entirety of The Wire, It was her as an individual. The idea, though, across media still,
Yes.
hyperfixates on men. And I'm not saying that men aren't functioning in higher numbers in certain regards. What I'm saying is that women played a role, even
Yes.
down to, because I grew up in it. I
Yeah.
remember the finest girls that were only dealing with the drug dealers, the dudes who were driving drop top BMWs, and he's 17. You knew goddamn well he couldn't afford no BMW, neither could his family. He'll pull that brilliant, beautiful car up to a broken down apartment building, and you knew what was going on. But those girls only dated those guys, and those guys went out their way to attract the most beautiful girls. I saw the economy of it, even among teenagers.
Yes.
But there was never any conversation about how women participated, in their own ways. It doesn't even have to be standing on the corner selling. I watched how they participated in the economy of drugs, and I've never seen them held accountable for their participation. I've only heard it directed toward men. And this is not just in regard to drugs. This is about anything the community finds negative. I've very rarely, if ever, seen women held accountable as a collective the way Black men have.
Yeah, like Steve Harvey's wife got a Wilson status by marrying two brothers that were drug dealers.
Come on.
They went to they did their bids. What happened to her? She married Steve Harvey. She became famous, but nobody talks about her and her past and her background.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
here we go.
Believe in Black life. So we see violence that emerges in the domestic space. And we often are most acutely attuned to the physical violence within that context. But there's also rhetorical violence. How do we talk to the women and the children in our lives, right? The way that silence, for instance, not responding to the concerns of your partner, your wife, the person who's raising your children, that in not responding to them, you're deploying that silence as a weapon to dismiss what their concerns are. We have done a bad job, a tragic job, really, when we consider the way that we raise boys in this society, and Black boys specifically in this context, where we don't teach boys how to use their words. They seem as though the only way that they can resolve.
So we transitioned from Justin Fairfax stabbing and killing his wife to boys not knowing how to speak, articulate their feelings. Notice the transition. Notice the argument. The subtle inclusion of not only all Black men but boys. So now we're trying. So first of all, mental health. Patriarchy was a mental health issue. All Black men were somehow, via Brittany Cooper's article, responsible for the sense of ownership that a Justin Fairfax takes when he decides to take his wife's life. And now we're transitioning into how boys are part of this dynamic because they haven't learned how to articulate their feelings. This is the kind of speech that we're seeing here, which I believe is just as offensive and abrasive as Funky Deneva's little rant. It's presented as scholarly, as intellectual. It's presented as acceptable. But to me, it's just as toxic and it's just as dehumanizing to Black males.
Yeah, it's far more damaging because it gets written into policy.
Well, it gets written into policy, and you will hear this type of speech in a classroom. You can dismiss Funky Deneva because it's not academic, it's not respectable. So we can dismiss it because he's out of pocket. But I have gone to graduate school. This kind of speech was welcome. This was homework. It was played in class. There were discussions around this type of speech. We read chapters from authors like this who talked about Black men in this fashion. Right? This was acceptable in the highest, spaces in the land, as it were. Anyway.
Yeah.
Conflict is through violence, right? Entity gone awry globally, right? In which the idea of negotiation is thrown out the table for violence, right? So we're seeing this at the highest levels. Of course, it's going to bubble down to the everyday lives of people who are experiencing this. But patriarchy, I think, for Black men is something that is really appealing because it gives Black men this some sense. And I will own this for myself at the various times in my life where I understood the privilege of patriarchy, that it gives us some semblance of power. But it's not a real power, right? It's not a real power if ultimately it's being used to destroy those in our lives, to destroy our communities.
How are you able to reconcile the call for strides and help for Black men with mental health conditions, while also acknowledging the toll on Black women and children?
It can't be an either or.
Yeah.
We have raised emotionally stunted Black men and boys. And stunted is probably not the right word. We give Black men and boys only certain outlets for their emotions. So anger is acceptable. Certain forms of frustration are acceptable. So many other forms of emotions that come from Black men and boys, we police. To be a Black man and to be vulnerable is to be questioned about the validity of your masculinity. To be a Black man who leads with caregiving, as opposed to the more patriarchal role of controlling and caretaking, right? Providing.
So what he's doing here is he's basically blaming the Black boys themselves for their behavior, in the sense that he's saying, instead of learning how to act like women, they try to act like men only in the most toxic sense, and they make the situation worse. I've talked on previous shows about how we don't need to emulate women to find constructive methods for dealing with emotion amongst Black men. There are already methods men have been using for thousands of years that we can tap into. So this idea that we have to somehow copy women in order to be accepted in terms of how we manage emotion, I find highly problematic. But
it doesn't work anyway, because the boys are rejecting it.
It doesn't work. But what he's also sidestepping is the social punishment that boys experience when they do allow themselves to be vulnerable. Not just boys, men themselves. The very same groups of women that you're talking about that want this vulnerability from men will punish men for the same vulnerability.
Yes, yeah, because it's not sexually attractive.
Well, it's not sexually attractive, but when women punish you and punish you by weaponizing the vulnerability you share with them, he doesn't talk about that part of it. He just suggests that boys are masculine, and they want to emulate toxic masculinity. My words, that's not the word he used in this context, but they want to emulate this just because they're male. But he doesn't want to talk about the reason might have something more to do with when boys and men, and I used to see this in the 80s, because that's when I started to see this call for men to be more emotionally present. Remember, women wanted men to cry, and I remember as a kid, I used to hear these changing social expectations of men in relationships. But what they would never talk about on the same channels that they made these requests is how many men found that the more vulnerability they shared, the more that vulnerability was weaponized against them by the very women who were demanding that they share that vulnerability. So they're treating it as if boys are just refusing to share and be vulnerable because they're too macho, when in actuality, boys are actually responding and adapting to the environment they're in.
Exactly.
And if the environment is unwelcoming to them expressing themselves,
they're withdrawing. Or they're leaving the environment altogether, which is passport bros.
But instead of asking them, you've pathologized them and suggested that they're just too incapable to act enough like or emulate women enough to be acceptable in this new time period, or at least this idea they're talking about is a new time period.
And the thing is, they never asked what the boys actually wanted.
No, not at all.
They're defective. They never asked. They never actually asked if this stuff will actually work. So now you have a whole generation of boys just sitting on the sidelines, basically become what I call MGTOWs. They're not engaging, right? No relationships, no marriage, they're not even dating. Okay, back in the day, those were called men going their own way, MGTOW. Okay, which is disastrous for the social cohesion, right? That's how come there you got Galloway and Chetty and yada yada yada. After talking about lonely men, and we need to get boys and young men back engaged, stuff like that. Basically, for what?
Right.
For the women that you try to present us with? No, try to make us into women. They don't want to be that, and they rejected it. So all they're doing with this is actually pushing men, like you said, pushing the boys and young men way even faster and further.
Yeah. Here we go.
Sustenance and family and housing and food and shelter, all those kinds of things that we think of as the responsibility of men. We don't give Black men many diverse.
Go ahead.
See, he just named all the patriarchal stuff that women, all women, especially Black women, expect out of men.
Yeah.
And just cruise right on past it.
But notice he doesn't. You notice they don't ever call it patriarchy.
No.
It's just some things that men are supposed to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not patriarchal, but that's beside the point.
Yeah, because then you'd have to explain how you really don't have a problem with all aspects of patriarchy. In fact, there are certain aspects of patriarchy you want to make a complete social expectation.
Mm-hmm.
You want it to be the floor we stand on, while at the same time denigrating the very concept of it. It doesn't work.
They act like the idea of the pit bull just not biting them. That's all.
Oh yeah, as long as they can control it, they're happy about it.
They're happy about it. Yeah, they want a faithful dog on a leash.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Outlets to express their emotions, and that is both what leads, I would say, in some cases, not all cases, obviously, and I'm not a mental health expert, but if you are a human being who can't fully express what your emotions are, that speaks some troubling of your mental health. And we can't necessarily say to Black men, well, you need to go to therapy. I'm thinking about my man Ciari the Kid, who has this great song, right? Do Black men need therapy? Yes. But not every Black man or Black boy is in a position to get therapy. And to admit that you're in therapy is somehow to admit that there's something wrong with you.
First of all, I think that's an old trope.
It is,
as far as that's concerned. But I'll take it further. My problem with this is when you look at the dynamics in the field of psychology, it's overwhelmingly female. The call for therapy becomes really a call for women to advise you on the proper expression of emotion and proper conduct. It's becoming more and more of that as we see the field itself begin to completely eliminate men. So I take issue. Now, first of all, let me be clear. I don't have a problem with therapy. I actually think that therapy can be great. But the question for me is, when you have a field of study that's effectively eliminating its male presence, and yet calls for therapy are becoming more and more something you hear from the elite or the well-to-do, what are we actually talking about? What are we actually talking about? If men are effectively being, pushed out of the field, and men's perspectives are being pushed out, then telling me to go to therapy and telling boys to go to therapy, it effectively becomes what?
Yeah.
Again, we're talking about feminization.
Yeah.
And if you're going to call for boys and men to go get therapy, but you're not going to call out the feminization of the field, then we're having two different conversations, because I'm not only looking at therapy itself, I'm looking at the politics of what it is you're trying to get people to do. And you don't want to talk about the politics. You just want them to blindly do it.
And what are you trying to get them to do and be?
Yeah, exactly.
And does that agree with their nature?
Yeah. Yeah. I've had a great therapy experiences. I mostly deal with Black male therapists. And even then, you kind of got to vet their ideology. If they're feminists, for the most part, I don't really go that route. But if I find Black men that are pretty straightforward, I've had good experiences with therapy. I did it for 5 years after my wife passed. I'm an advocate for therapy. Kevin was an advocate for therapy. There's nothing wrong with therapy in and of itself. But you can't remain oblivious to the politics of what's going on in the field of psychology and how that's presenting itself in all the different expressions of psychology, including therapy.
Yes.
I remember my wife and I actually went to a Black woman marriage counselor first. And I've shared this before. This is how bad it is. When your wife in the middle of the session turns to you after the woman just got through speaking to us, turns to you and says, "Damn, you're right. She really does hate men." Do you know how bad it has to be for that to happen? The woman was advocating for my wife, and basically everything she said was, everything I was doing wrong and everything my wife, was right about, and so on and so forth. But do you know how bad it is for your wife to have to say, "God damn, you're right. She does hate men."
She does hate men.
That's how bad it was. And this was long before I got into any of these gender politics issues. I was shocked because I didn't have a language for it at the time. I was just, why is it every time we go to this session and we leave, I look like some kind of monster? And my wife would be kind of quiet, and I think this was about the third session. She just said that in the middle of the session. She was like, "God damn, you're right. She does hate men." And the woman was not prepared for that, because usually if someone advocates for you, women are happy to just take it. Well, see, she said I was right. And they both kind of browbeat you into behaving the way they want to. But when the wife turns and turns on her like that, she didn't know what to do with that. The counselor. she was kind of stuck, and we never came back after that. But it was just an interesting moment where I was like, okay, I'm not crazy. You know, I'm not crazy. All right. Anyway, so here we go.
That there's something at fault with you. We need to change the framing so that we think about mental health care on any level as something that not only repairs us, because that is part of the problem, but also something that allows us to be the fullest human that we can be.
Now, see, I just want to quickly say, when he talks about repair and becoming the fullest human you can be, I just want you to be clear. The standard by which he's defining that is a feminist standard. So that means that unless you've been guided in therapy by a feminist to reach the conclusions a feminist says are acceptable, you're considered out of pocket until you've had the proper kind of training so you can become the right kind of person. All right, this is what I mean by the politics of therapy. You got to deal with the politics of the field and not limit it to the conversation about therapy.
Yeah.
Very often it's the pastor or the religious practice that takes the place of therapy. And spirituality is an important part of our lives, but let's not mistake spirituality for the expertise that therapy can provide, right? So that's one side of the question. Not every Black man who is suffering from mental health chooses violence against women as an option, right? Some of these men are in their full right mind who believe that they're within their right to treat women and those less powerful than them as they choose. And so I think we have to hold both of these things together, right? You know, so much of my work over the years has been working at this intersection of understanding the lives of Black men and what Black men face, but at the same time holding Black men accountable for their behaviors, right? Both to each other, but also to the women and children, intimate partners that are in their lives. And I don't think it's ever an either or. It's always a both and.
Yeah. I'm thinking about this because, I don't know, this might be a bit of like an overshare, but like I grew up, my mother was a social worker for Child Protection Services, and my stepmother was the head of a safe house for abuse survivors. And I've listened to a lot of testimonials from Black women who were trying to survive really impossible situations and being told to kind of take it in stride. I think reactions to this violence sometimes seem to fall into that dynamic of focusing on the individual man in question without looking at maybe the deeper power imbalances that exist and allow so many women and children in these situations. Like, what's your take on that?
You know, when we see some of the most recent expressions of violence against Black women, it's not brand new. There have always been these incidences. We are perhaps just more hyper aware of it because of news coverage and the internet and social media and all those kinds of things. But I also think there was a regularized practice in Black communities not to air dirty laundry.
Yeah.
And this was particularly important during the era of segregation, where, you know, much of the argument about our demands to be more integrated into the mainstream of American life was that saying to white folks, we're just like you. that we're normal, right? It turns out we're more like them than we ever wanted to admit, but that's another conversation. And so we didn't want to pay attention to aspects of our lives that seemed pathological, that in fact, if there was intimate partner violence in our homes. So because we didn't want it to become something that was known outside of our homes, outside of our communities, it's something that we very often remain silent about, right? And the people who most often bore the brunt of that silence were Black women and children. Children, because not only were they sometimes subject to violence, but they had to witness the violence against their mother, their grandmothers, their aunties, their sisters, et cetera, et cetera. And in this context, we obviously...
Now, BGS, feel free to stop me anytime you want. But I did want to at least put this message out to everybody. When you see us being silent and letting it play, that's not because I agree with what he's saying.
Right.
It's because if I keep stopping it, we'll
never get through it. Yeah.
We'll never get through. So I just wanted to clarify, just because I didn't stop it does not mean I'm endorsing what's going on. It's just too much to stop at every moment. But anyway, here we go.
Talking about deadly violence, but that's also inclusive of rape and sexual violence within that context also. And so I think what we have seen over the last 20 years or so is more of a willingness to have conversations about how this is impacting our communities. And so I think the discourse, despite the fact that it occurs under very tragic and sad situations as it has recently, it's an important discourse for us to have collective conversations about what does it mean for all of us to be safe in our own homes, to be safe around our partners, for our children to be safe within that context.
So in that regard, do these killings feel like they're one-off incidents, or is this a persistent issue to call attention to?
So now you're asking the question. I think many would like to believe that it's one-off, that it's an aberration. But violence against women across the racial spectrum suggests that it's not an aberration, that it's normative. And I understand those folks who are cautious of.
See, when they make statements like violence against women is normative, this is why we show statistics. I just showed you that is nowhere near 1%, not even across race.
No.
See, what they're trying to do is they're trying to take the amount of violent incidents that do occur, and you know what you often hear them do is they'll divide like 365 days into it to suggest a certain amount of violence happens every day.
For how many hours per,
right. Yeah. But they do that because for the longest there were resources tied to that. You could justify organizations, nonprofits, you could justify new policy, you could justify the expansion of these things when it came to resources by making these kinds of fantastical claims. But if you just showed it in terms of the raw data, it wasn't impressive enough. It just wasn't. This is why even when you get feminists talking about racism, they're talking about the kind of police homicides and whatnot, you'll never really see them give you straight data. They'll never give you straight numbers. They like to play with the rates, they like to dance around with the terms, and if you don't read carefully, the terms will be very specific. There'll be one word in it that sounds a little strange and you don't know why it's there, but you'll always hear it stated a certain way. It's because they're playing with the numbers to try and give something more credibility than it actually is.
They're curating the whole experience, for an outcome.
For an outcome, because nobody wants to say, okay, you got 400 people that died this year compared, out of a population of 48 million.
Yeah, and like we talked about violence against children, or violence that children actually experienced, it had nothing to do with the mothers hitting the kid.
Not at all. They don't want to talk about that.
They see daddy beat mama, and that's the whole thing. That affects the kid. Okay. Yeah. So the whole experience with violence.
I had this debate, and I shared it on my show a week or two ago, and I pointed out it was a woman who was talking about, well, look how many women are being killed. Now she gave me a number. That was, I want to say it was close to 800, but she was including in it a lot of different forms of deaths. It wasn't just intimate partner homicide.
Right.
She was bolstering the numbers. And even then, the numbers out of a 40 plus million, person population is still absolutely ridiculously low.
Yes.
But she was just kind of reiterating this point. Look how many women are being killed. I said, well, if you really want to follow this logic down to the extent you're taking it, let's talk about abortions.
Ooh.
You want to talk about, people deleting lives in the highest numbers? You want to talk about how many black men? I said, first and foremost, if you want to talk about deletions, black men delete each other far more than they delete women.
Right.
If that's your argument, if your argument is that black men need to be dealt with because of the amount of violence they bring to women, well, how about the amount of violence they bring to one another? That's not the point of concern. But okay, so you just want to deal with black men deleting people. Okay, well let's have this conversation. We could talk about child deletions and mothers. We can talk about abortions. I said black women are coming up on around 20 million since the 1970s, higher than any other demographic of women. Are we going to pathologize black women on the basis of that, or is it still just black men we need to talk about?
Yeah. I mean, well, the thing is, you gotta have a boogeyman.
Yeah,
got to keep the boogeyman alive.
And when you're dealing with the left, those kind of politics, those kind of numbers don't yield the response that they want.
Yeah, no.
So, but again, the primary motivation behind all of this is to secure resources. The question is, as those tectonic plates under our feet are shifting, does this type of rhetoric yield the kind of results it did 20 years ago?
It can't because the amount of weight to actually move is not the same.
Yeah,
not the same. Okay,
here we go.
Demanding too much accountability to men who are accused, whether it's this man in Louisiana who we did not know, or it's Justin Fairfax, or if it's the more famous versions of this narrative that has played out over the last 20 years, the Cosby, the Combs, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
There is this desire that we don't want to make the point that there's something so wrong with Black men that somehow the violence that they enact towards Black women makes them an outlier. Doesn't make them an outlier, right? It makes them normative in the context of how violence is parlayed in American society. And I think...
So in other words, we're not going to treat these incidents as isolated incidents. We're going to treat them as reflective of everyday Black men.
Or everyday society, yeah. So,
everyday society. It's Black men in society. We are normal in what Justin Fairfax did is an expression of all of us in American society.
In society, yeah.
Bullshit. But make your paper.
Part of that is the shame that's associated with having to acknowledge these incidences when they occur, because what do they say about Black men? What do they say about Black women? To acknowledge these cases.
Notice the musical cue, by the way. Just had to add that.
Is us buying into the very violent stereotypes that have long been associated with who Black men are in the world.
That's one he did say. Okay.
The optics of it.
What's that?
About the tropes about Black men being violent that have been around for a long time. Okay. He slipped that in though.
Wow.
This is not new.
Wow. This is a product of racist scholarship. This is something Tommy Curry's been breaking down for the longest, how feminists have pulled from racist scholarship going back to the 1800s all the way to the mid 20th century. And they use that as a starting point to describe Black men in Black feminist literature.
Yeah.
And you see him casually referencing that here. That's interesting. Yeah, here we go.
Cannot be as important as us dealing with the reality of what it means to have this violence in our communities. And how do we address and diminish that violence in our communities so that we can have much more productive lives with each other?
Coming up, we talk about the realities we have to face in order to get to those more productive lives.
I don't have a problem with conversations about violence. I think it's important. And, but my only issue is if you're going to do it, you need to do it with some integrity. You need to come in good faith. And we need to actually talk about the nature of that violence, not this politically one-sided approach to it designed to denigrate Black men so you could advance your politics, your job positioning, and secure yourself more resources and policies that operate to your benefit. Right. This is why I think Black men have begun to withdraw from these kind of discussions. And they've characterized it as them being too toxic to want to engage. No, I think what's happening is they realize that you're disingenuous in your approach. And this is very political for you. So I'm not going to help you advance your politics at my expense. That's what that is.
Yeah. And Black men said we can't do it without our dollars, with our voices, because we're going to actually do it with our feet.
Our feet?
We're not going to engage. Yeah.
No, we're going to walk away. Here we go. I think I might have to fast forward through whatever's coming next.
Okay.
I spent 6 years in therapy. It changed my life. I needed to figure out who I was and what I wanted in the world and how I could be a better partner, husband, and father to my 2 daughters. And therapy helped me to do that.
Stay with us.
This message comes from Warby Parker.
Today at Carvana.com or just
for one, but this is also in the context of a country where Black men are constantly stigmatized and marginalized. So how do you do that?
I think you do so honestly and with integrity and with the fullest sense of your humanity that you can draw upon. Because Black men can be victims and are victims in a racist society does not give us latitude to be victimizers, particularly in our own home. I mean, that is inexcusable. There's always, I think, this dynamic, and it's something, I have a book that's coming out in August, Save a Seat for Me.
There we go.
Notes on American Fatherhood. And one of the things I talk about in the book is when you're a Black man in the domestic space, there are these impulses, right? Do you stay and fight or do you flee? And I'm using fight not in the sense of violence in the way that we're talking about it, but do you stay and deal with the difficulties of being a father or partner where you might be struggling.
Okay, just in case you're not aware, he's slipping in a bit of the deadbeat dad narrative into this in a very subtle way. He's basically saying that one of the challenges men have is to stick it in and sit there. What did Iyanla Van Zant used to talk about? You stand in it with her?
Yeah, stand in it. Yeah.
You got to stand in it with her, or are you going to run?
Are you going to run? Yeah.
And the implication is that because black men run, that this reinforces the deadbeat dad narrative of men who abandon their families because they're emotionally incapable of navigating families with women. That's essentially what he's saying.
Yeah, even not accounting for the vast majority of divorces actually filed by black women.
Oh, and they'll spin that. They'll say, well, you know, the divorces are happening because women are unhappy because men are just not capable of hearing. But when you listen to what's actually being stated, a lot of women are initiating these divorces because they're bored.
Yeah, they're bored. Yeah.
Or because there are money issues.
Yeah.
You know, but feminists will present it as women are these ethereal beings that have this innate understanding of what pure emotional communication is, and men are just so far away from it that they fail at every turn. And these women have to tolerate these men that just can't get their shit together. This is the narrative that we're leading with. And one of the things I always tell people, I'm like, these women have gotten so arrogant. It's like, do you not realize I was raised in the same house with you?
I know. Like, we don't know black women.
I've seen you full of shit. I've seen you lie. I've seen you, I've walked in the bathroom after you've come out. You are not perfect.
No.
Stop this bullshit. I've seen you turn men in with a false accusation for a profit. I've seen you, you know what I mean? I've seen you lie at the job to get a promotion over a man by accusing him of something he didn't do. I've witnessed this.
You know, like I grew up with the idea of hot water, hot grease, and kitchen utensils. Okay, so I know women are not angels. Okay.
And we're not doing the reverse of feminists and saying, well, women are monsters. What we're saying is, let's look at what's really going on the ground.
I have never heard a black kid said he was scared of his father. Who's he scared of?
Oh, okay. Because I was scared of my father. That's because my father had that big ass belt, but that was a different time. I don't know about what y'all went through. But no, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. Let me see here. All right. So we might actually be able to get through this. Hold on.
Economically, or a range of other things. Or do you just simply leave? We are very critical of black men who leave their children without a father, right? Who choose not to engage in the responsibility of raising these children that they have with the mother.
On cue.
Yeah.
On time. There's a checklist of black feminist topics that every interview has to fucking cover. One of them is deadbeat dads. Which is low key niggas ain't shit. Like there's a checkbox that has to go through. You know, abusive men, deadbeat dads. You know, I'm sure
after the break, we're gonna get to the rest of this checklist. Yeah.
We're gonna see if they're gonna get to grape. You know, but it's on cue.
There's a century of stories about black men who choose to leave. But at the same time, you know, we also need to have the conversations about black men when they absolutely do need to leave.
Oh, wow.
When your only choice is violence.
God damn. God damn. Wow. And no discussion about what the family court gave women the power to do, especially in the black community. They did it for the white community too, but as a smaller community with far less wealth.
And much more trauma.
And much more trauma. If you give one demographic, the women, the power to put men out of the family at a whim, no reason. No fault divorce. There didn't have to be a fault. It didn't have to be a reason. Gave them the power to push men out the family, and you still only have a conversation about men who quote unquote left. But you never want to talk about how many men were pushed out. That's not a conversation we're supposed to have, because we have to keep the onus on the men. So we only have language for deadbeat dads. We don't have a language for women that abuse the power they were given by the family court to control who gets to be considered in the family, who doesn't, which fathers get access to their children, which ones don't, and how long. There's no discussion about that. Anyway,
against someone in your home, you should take that as a cue to leave. It feels so selfish to take your life and then your partner's life also. You're a grown man. You can choose to do what you want with yourself, right? Folks will care about you and will grieve your loss because you meant something to somebody. But it's so selfish to take out someone who has been on the receiving end of your violence.
So now we're taking the Justin Fairfax murder suicide and we're turning it into an act of selfishness and somehow reflecting that on all Black men.
Yeah. Now, Justin Fairfax was in the home with his wife and kids. You know, he didn't abandon them. He was in his home with a wife and kids. He might have went crazy, but thing is, he was in the home. Same thing with the other young man. Okay, don't like what he did, but thing is, he was in the home with his wife and kids.
But I've heard it framed as selfishness. I've heard it framed as cowardice. And let me just say,
it's effective. Yeah.
When you're dealing with a mental break, those are not the character. Those are not the terms that best measure the situation. You're not dealing with a rational person that had a bad day. You're dealing with somebody who has effectively snapped on a psychological level. Logic went out the door to somehow make that reflective of all Black men, and then to apply a moral idea to it, like it's selfishness or cowardice. That's irrelevant to the situation. That's completely irrelevant to the situation. If you got a Vietnam vet that comes back and thinks he's still at war and starts shooting people around him, that has nothing to do with selfishness or cowardice.
No.
That is a mental breakdown. Why is it that Black men can't be talked about in that framework? Why is it immediately problematic to raise it if that is significantly the case? If we've seen, in terms of the evidence that was the case, why is it that can't be talked about on the merits of what actually occurred?
Because Black men are supposed to be able to overcome it. Because we're not really men. Okay, we're men not. We're objects. They're not supposed to feel. Okay. But they actually wants to go and get therapy.
Right.
Really. Okay. We can't talk about mental breaks and mental breakdowns, but the thing is, okay, we need therapy.
Right. Man, please.
Violence. I mean, it's just, and there's no comfort zone in that. There's no comfort zone in that for me as a thinker, as a scholar, looking at this, who has daughters who are in relationships, and as far as I know, loving relationships, but always hyper aware of that because I'm a girl dad. To have had friends who have lost siblings, right, because of violence against their sister or their daughter or their mother. I mean, for me, that's ultimately
what he's trying to do is genderize the violence against women and children. And notice he didn't say children in that instance. He said girls. He was talking about daughters and sisters, and he was tying it with the mothers to contrast it, to make the suggestion that men are the ones that are doing all of this. But when you look at the data and you look at which parent is harming the children to the greatest degree, it isn't the fathers. They don't want to talk about that though. So he's piecemealing it together and just to give you one frame from one angle that makes men villains.
He's, as they say in the films, he's curating his the knowledge, curating the stats.
Really the bottom line that Black men can never excuse the violence they enact because of the violence that they are experiencing. Right. If you are to be
who is excusing the violence that they commit in their homes because of the violence they experience in society? What group of Black men are saying that because Black men are being killed by police officers or killed by each other, that justifies violence against women and children? Who's making that argument?
Right.
I haven't heard that. Where's that coming from?
In community. If you are to be in family, and even in the most traditional notions of Black masculinity that have circulated in Black communities, for centuries, your primary responsibility is to the safety and livelihood of that family, right? If you think that the only choice for you is violence against those folks, then you need to leave. and get the kind of help, right? Because, the Justin Fairfax thing again, it's like, he was in need of mental health care. Well, he should have got that well before it got to that moment.
Okay. God damn it. Okay. So now the issue is with Justin Fairfax that he should have just gotten health care. Okay. But if you're going through a mental break, that would be a logical thing to do. But is a person going through a mental break operating logically?
No.
I'm just curious.
No.
How the fuck does that work? He snapped, but he should have just gotten care. He let it go too far, and then he killed his family. And I'm like, wait a minute. Since when do people who are going through that operate from a logical standpoint? Help me with this, BGS. What am I missing here?
And in other words, men should recognize when they're being effective. And in other words, we can see the slow rolling mental illness that we have. We should actually go and, like cancer, go get a checkup.
Yeah. So in other words, if a man dies of cancer, he fucked up because he should have been checked out already and he didn't. Well, okay. I guess that's an argument you can make, but by the time you're dying of cancer, anyway, I'm not even gonna go there. I'm just saying that to me is a faulty argument to just say he should have got checked out. You're not dealing with a rational person. You're dealing with a person that has had a decline that can be marked in time, and just was in a position of it was under duress. Did anybody send him away to be taken into a facility when he started to show signs?
In fact, I'm reading it. In fact, his brother did, and he called it for an intervention of mental health.
What happened?
Right before it. It doesn't say what happened, but
you said right before,
right in April 2026. Yeah.
But it was a man. It was his brother, so I guess he fucked up too because he didn't do it early enough. I don't know. Anyway, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Sure, he should have gotten mental health care. I don't debate that at all. There's no question. But somebody who snapped like that to suggest that they just didn't get it soon enough, I was like, yeah, but is that how people think when they're going through a mental break?
No, well, if they did, then they wouldn't need a therapist, would they?
That's a choice he could have made before he got to this moment. And for those who really cared about him, that needed to be something that they needed to be invested in too. You can't just tell people you need to go find a therapist, right? They need to be within community. I hope that one of the byproducts of this, besides the obvious, right, bringing more attention to and hopefully ultimately curtailing violence against Black women, hopefully that it would create a context where more Black men will be open about the fact that they have pursued therapy at some point in their life as an intervention for choices that they could have made. I spent 6 years in therapy. It changed my life.
Yeah.
Right. And I wasn't someone who necessarily leaned into violence in any kind of way, but I needed to figure out who I was and what I wanted in the world and how I could be a better partner, husband, and father to my 2 daughters. And therapy helped me to do that. Now, I'm saying this as a college professor who has access to great healthcare.
It's
right.
nice.
Cats on the corner ain't necessarily got that.
That's true.
Which is why they're very often drawn to the therapy of their favorite rapper, or the therapy of the 40 ounce, or the therapy of the.
What are we in 1993? What the fuck? Okay, so now he has just classed the conversation, right? So he's basically saying that it's these poor Black men who can't afford therapy that are the problem, and they're not operating. In good fashion. They're not getting the help that they're supposed to get, and they're causing all the problems. I mean, am I wrong about this? Did he not just class the dialogue?
Yeah, he did.
I mean, I don't know. This is some interesting scapegoating. This is interesting scapegoating in this respect, where he's positioning. Poor Black men is the problem. And we've heard this kind of talk for the longest. So this isn't new, but we'll see what he goes with from here.
Weed. I mean, and we make fun of it, right? Because these are young men, in some cases older men, trying to make sense of their lives without having access to the kind of tools and resources that could actually dramatically impact how they see themselves in the world.
You wrote a book called New Black Man just about 20 years ago.
Yes.
Who is that new black man? Like, paint me a picture of him.
The new black man was always something aspirational for me.
Mm-hmm.
I was never the new black man. That was never the point. But I was gesturing towards some sort of aspirational notion of black men who, first of all, were comfortable in their skins. You know, being raised as a black boy, as a young black man, becoming an adult, I always felt as though, you know, masculinity was like this little small box. And to be a real man, you had to figure out how to comport yourself to fit into that box. And if you either couldn't fit into that box or chose not to be in that box, you would be castigated for not being a real man, for not being a real black man. A new black man is a black man who's comfortable in the skin that he is. And
what's interesting to me is the only people that I hear talking about what a real black man is are women.
Women, yeah.
That's who I hear it from most, telling me what I'm supposed to do to be a real black man.
But he's not going to say that.
No, he can't. That's one of the issues I've had with these feminists. They never push back. They don't give qualifications. What they're supposed to do is toe the feminist line. And what they're allowed to do is repeat feminist talking points, but they're not allowed to think independently, and they're damn sure not allowed to question. And that's one of the things that for me, let me know that this is not, you know, operating in good faith, because there's no idea that I haven't seen people question in good faith. You know, I don't care what the idea is, what the ideology is. To me, it's more valid if it can stand up to questions, but not questions coming from people who are just trolling to be trolling.
Right.
Questions coming from even within, right? Even within the group in question, questions about validity and accuracy and truth and so on and so forth. You're not allowed to raise those questions in black feminist circles. You're supposed to accept and be quiet, especially as a man. You're supposed to accept and be quiet. So when I listen to this, I don't hear any of that.
Yeah, you're supposed to be a provider, a rock, stoic, and all that stuff, but be open and actually use your words to actually express your feelings.
Right.
How he shows up as a man, regardless of what the larger society says. A new black man is vulnerable. You know, someone who can admit to pain and fear, who can acknowledge the ways in which they are worried about who they are in the world and are concerned about the threats that are directed towards us, right? We have this mythology of the strong black man. And, you know, this vulnerability is important because, you know, as we get older and they become real health challenges, you know, black men tend to not to like to go to the doctor. Let me just man up. Let me take this Tylenol.
Oh, God, man. How many stereotypes are we going to look for? God damn.
Right.
Let me ask you a question, BGS. If I call you and I share an insecurity or a fear, does that count as being vulnerable if I didn't call a woman and share it with her? I'm just curious. Because men talk to each other all the time.
All the time, yeah. And the thing is, they don't talk about women weaponizing your vulnerability on you, which is why men don't share it with them.
Yeah. But
they want to address that part.
But I've actually called you and said, man, I got a problem. I got something I'm grappling with.
Yes.
You know, but notice when they define vulnerability, they never talk about two men having a conversation being vulnerable with one another. And vulnerable doesn't mean we got to have a taster's choice coffee moment and cry and, you know, whatever the stereotype is about emotional expression. It can include crying. I'm not putting that out there, but they want these performed methods of expression. And it seems to me that they want this expression done with women as if it doesn't happen elsewhere. But when two brothers get together and have a conversation and share vulnerabilities or get advice or whatever it may be, it doesn't seem to count when it comes to how they define men being vulnerable.
Because they never define it. They just say it. It's not defined. They don't tell you how or what you're supposed to say or how you're supposed to practice it. They just say you should be. What does that mean?
What does it mean?
It's gray. What does that mean?
Yeah. But that's my problem. It's and I said this in the show previously. It's like what is that old chestnut about? If a tree falls in the wood and nobody's there to hear it,
it did fall. Yeah.
Did it make any noise? My question is a man vulnerable if he shares it with another man, or is it just when he shares it with a woman that it counts as being vulnerable? That's my question.
I think is, are you sharing it with your female partner?
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. But I mean, I hear this from brothers all the time. They dialogue all the time on some of the most incredibly vulnerable issues possible. And somehow it doesn't seem to count. I don't know. Maybe
because it's not expressed the way they think it should be expressed.
There you go. There you go.
It's just like fathering a child is not done the same way that a woman mothers a child.
Right.
It's not done the same way.
But to suggest that a child hasn't been parented until a mother parents them, that's kind of what we're dealing with here.
Exactly.
This one-sided idea. I'm going to give this another few minutes and we'll call it a day.
Okay.
So here we go.
let me take this Robitussin, and
oh God,
you go to sleep and I'll feel better. That's our body telling us that we're vulnerable, right? And they're focused.
Yeah, it may not have nothing to do with the history of how the medical industry has treated Black male bodies. We're not going to, we can give women the grace of saying that their questions about the medical industry are rooted in the mistreatment and experimentation on Black women's bodies. But when Black men don't want to get medical care, it's just that they're deficient beings. It can't be because some of them have made decisions about the history of treatment. It can't be because they're working and can't afford to take off. It can't be anything else other than that they're deficient. But with women, we can have all kinds of qualifications about what they do and why.
Right.
Yeah.
Whose job is to help us deal with those vulnerabilities. That's also what a new Black man is, right? A new Black man is both a caretaker and a caregiver. The most important job I've had in my life is as the father of my now 2 adult daughters, and understanding that the role that I played in their lives couldn't simply be making sure that they had food to eat and the bills were paid and there was a car to drive them to school. But, I had to share in the caregiving aspects of it. I had to show up emotionally for them. I had to listen to their stories, right? I had to listen to their concerns and not judge. All these things that, don't necessarily come in the toolkit of what it means to be a man.
This is where I take issue with this kind of narrative. This goes back to what I was saying before about how what you have with these feminists is they want you to emulate women's methods of doing things in order for it to be considered that. But when you listen to what he just said, to be emotionally present, right, to listen, first of all, I think he would be upset at how many men in this space have done those very things, raising their children.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you listen to your daughter?
Yeah, you have to. Yeah.
But somehow, I don't think unless you declare yourself a feminist and try to emulate women, is it considered that you've done these things?
And Black men as a group are trained how to take care of children as a group. More than any other group of men on the planet. We're actually trained how to take care of babies and children. I learned how to actually put a diaper on a kid when I was 7. My little sister, okay? I was trained how to take care of kids. And most Black men are, okay? Mama don't divide up duties with male and female. No, you got to do all of it.
But even when you get to, and this is something that library card holder brings up in the comment section, right? This whole question of emotional labor. What I've argued for years is that men have long since been performing emotional labor. This is not new. The real question about people demanding that men perform it is that they want men to perform it like women. But men have been doing emotional labor in relationships. There was never a time when they weren't. It's just that they didn't do so by the standards that feminists created.
Women will reject men that do emotional labor like women.
Yeah, they will. They will. They absolutely will. They absolutely will.
Because that's not what they're looking for. And the emotional labor that men do, okay, is mostly making sure that they regulate that woman's emotions. Okay, walking into the door. Sometimes you got to be quiet. Okay, why do you think lesbian relationships are so volatile? Because each one wants to get their emotions out and across. Okay, men can't do that. Okay, if they did, the marriage wouldn't last. The biggest emotional thing that men do is knowing when to shut up and let her talk.
Yeah. You got to know when to shut up. You got to know when to speak. You got to know when to help. You got to know when to not help. You got to you got to know when to help and not let her know you're helping. You got to know.
You got to know when what to let go and when to stand your ground.
When to stand your ground. You know, don't get me started on the romance movies and novels. You got to know when to sweep her off her feet and when she wants to be left alone. Like men have to constantly navigate all of these possible expectations on her behalf.
If she gets bored and don't go on a date night, it's your fault.
There you go.
That's emotional labor.
That's emotional labor. Absolutely. But feminists came around and said men weren't doing it because they weren't doing it the way women wanted them to do it.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Okay. So SL says, I'm happy to hear y'all voices today. I really needed it. BGS and Dr. T, I'm in a pressured place. Thank you for all the things you do. Hey.
Yeah. Hope it works out, man.
Yeah. Damn it. This thing is moving fast. Shout out to Big Truck Driver. All right. I'll let him finish his point.
I mean, it's one of the reasons why I'm so thankful I was a girl dad, because I just see the world differently. Because at an early age, what they demanded of me, and this is not my 4-year-old daughter telling me this, but just seeing how they move through the world, it demanded that I pay attention to the kinds of threats that they were going to face.
See, right there, right there.
Go ahead.
Her mother doesn't look at threats. Okay, guess who does?
This is what I want to do. I want to end on a question to you. And this is a question that comes about because you are a girl dad. You have how many daughters? 2. You have 2 daughters. Okay.
Yeah. 2 adult daughters, just like him. Yeah.
There you go. So, you know, so this whole question of being a girl dad, of dealing with girls, their emotional needs, the need to be present, to listen, so on and so forth. The idea is somehow that the only way you can properly parent, especially as a girl dad, is to emulate how mothers mother. And if you're not doing it that way, then you're doing something wrong. As a girl dad, why didn't you take to this philosophy from feminists that you have to be mother-like to raise girls well?
It's because it doesn't work. It's because girls will not have to have boundaries if you don't.
Okay.
She got to know. She has to know what her boundaries are because she has to go out and face that world just like that boy does. Okay.
So how did you approach it differently than some of these feminist girl dads? What did you do differently when it came to how you even thought about raising your daughters?
I wanted her to actually get to know boys. Like I'll put my girl on a boys basketball team, right? It used to being around boys as boys. Okay, so when you graduate to being around men, you'll be comfortable with them. Okay, you'll know their nature instead of what you think their nature actually is from your mother. And secondarily, I said, I let her know that coming up, what boys are after as far as intimacy, okay, sexuality, and how she needs to actually have standards and barriers. Okay, so because he's doing sweet talk doesn't mean he's the right man for you. You got to vet him properly. You have to put up protections and barriers and standards, stuff like that.
Okay.
In other words, you got to be aware. This is the real world. Your mama's telling you that it's okay to go out in that short dress. Nothing's gonna happen. Nah, baby, you can't go out in that.
So your thing was to make sure your daughters understood how the real world functions.
How it functions to keep her safe and keep her whole and keep her. I said the last thing I want. I said I understand that your mama wants you to be friendly and be popular. Thing is, but I don't want you coming home with a baby at 14.
So instead of sheltering them and babying them, your thing was to expose them
to the real world.
To the real world. So you had them around males.
Yes.
You had them engage in activities where they got to know males.
Yes. Yes.
And you didn't pull any punches about the threats in the world.
No. In fact, I think she was 13 years old, right? She's just starting to investigate boys. Okay. And I saw what she was doing. I said, you know what? I said, I can take you, that little boy, that little boy just said to you, I can take you like 6 blocks away, same little boy to tell you the exact same thing that he just did. Okay.
Okay.
In other words, you have to understand what the game is,
Mm.
and
Okay.
and do it accordingly. You know.
Well, tell me this. So you exposed them to male nature.
Mm-hmm.
What did you talk to them about in terms of female nature?
As far as female nature being permissive. In fact, there's one time where she was a cheerleader and she had friends that wanted to go see a cheerleader. Right, they were a little older,
Mhm.
and they, she got them in. They jumped in my car, and I turned around. I said, "Did you get permission from your mother for me to actually take you?"
Okay.
And they looked at us. They said, "No." I said, "Go back upstairs. Ask your mother. Is it okay that you go with me and her to cheerleading?" Okay. My daughter asked why. I said, I'm teaching them boundaries. Okay.
Okay.
When they're out of pocket. Okay. You should not be leaving with a man that you don't know to someplace else without informing your parents. Okay.
Mhm.
There's steps and precepts you have to go through for your protection.
Mhm.
I'm teaching my daughter, you have to go through this for your protection.
Okay. Okay.
In other words, and a lot of things that I taught her, she uses.
Mhm.
How she vets men, or how she protects herself as far as men is concerned. Right? Okay. I said, because her mother's like, okay, she's a good girl. She ain't gonna have sex. I said, you know what? I said, I've been a boy. I've done the do. Okay. I know little girls. I know women. I said, nope. Okay. If you think that you're on the verge of doing it, okay, protect yourself. Okay, protect yourself.
Mhm.
One thing I told my daughter, and she remembered until she was, when I finally had my grandson, when she was 23. Okay, I said, I can help you heal a broken heart, but I can't take a baby back to the hospital.
Okay.
I said, no matter what, I said, if you do not have a baby, we can help you. But if you have that baby, then you're stuck. We're all stuck. Okay. So the first thing, no matter what you feel, protect yourself at all costs.
Okay.
And she did that until she was, like I said, she didn't get pregnant until she was like 23, 22, 23.
So is that in relation to teaching her about womanhood? How would you frame that?
Is that women would tell you being in love and all this, all that matters more than the basic business of actually living this life. Okay, because women
Okay.
frame it like that. Like, you hear women talk about why they got pregnant with this guy and that guy, right? Okay, and I said there's a proper way to do it.
Mm.
And when my daughter got pregnant out of wedlock, she was scared.
Mhm.
She was scared to tell me. It's because she didn't do it the right way. She didn't do it the way I told her to, because she knows there's going to be consequences.
Mm.
And so
Okay.
she didn't blame, when she came. She didn't blame the guy. She blamed herself.
Okay. Okay.
In other words, you're responsible for your own body. I don't want to hear about that's one thing that I demanded. I said, I don't want to hear about the guy. I want to hear about you,
Mm.
because you made a decision to bring this baby to term. Okay, you
So
have responsibility for your actions. Okay, as a man.
so you saw
Mhm.
the way other women function, from
Yes.
mothers to daughters,
Mhm.
and you said, no, I'm going to ground my daughters in realism
Yes.
and accountability.
Yeah, because that's my function. Yeah.
Because of what I've seen women tend to do,
Yes.
I'm going to make sure that my daughters understand there's another way to go about this.
Yeah, even down to my grandson, right? When he was like 3 or 4, teaching him to read, right? And he'd get upset when I was teaching him to write, right? He'd be on the verge of crying, okay? I would send him to his grandmother, okay? I know you're getting ready to cry. Go let your mother or your grandmother soothe your feelings, okay? That's her job.
And one of the things I noticed my father taught me in general, especially when I was real little, was about emotionalism. And his
Yes.
focus was on, my father was really big on priorities.
Mm-hmm.
My father was really big on goal setting and priorities. That was one of his biggest lifelong lessons, was that you need to learn how to set a goal. You need to learn how to move toward it. And he wasn't anti-emotion. His thing was, you can't let emotions make decisions for you.
Right.
You need to make the decision. You need to know how to move forward, and you experience the emotions, but not at the expense of truth.
Of truth, yes.
And I came to understand why he was doing that at a pretty early age, because I understood that as Black men, you don't get very many breaks.
Yes.
You don't get very many second chances.
Mm-hmm.
So his whole focus was, you're going to feel what you feel, and you're going to have to go through that, but make sure you never let your feelings override your decision making.
Mm-hmm.
Set your priorities, prioritize that, move toward it step by step, strategize, but never lose focus, and never allow momentary emotions, especially not just regular emotions, but momentary emotions, especially.
Right.
Never let them override what you need to do.
Or guide your actions.
Or guide your actions. He was very clear about that, because and this was the biggest thing. A lot of people say, well, that's just men avoiding emotion. No, men understand that the repercussions of allowing for emotion without logic are too great for Black males.
Yeah. She was recently, about maybe not quite a year ago, she's dating a guy that she's back and forth with, right? Okay. She's sitting there down to tell me, I met the guy, okay, and he's a blue collar guy, and she's college educated, she's 92, right? And we talked about him, right? She talked about what I think. I said, okay, you're at the age stage, you know why you're dating him. Now, is what you're getting out of this relationship worth what you're putting up with?
Mm-hmm.
Only you can answer that. Okay, you already know what I'm getting ready to say.
Right.
Okay, you can be in this or get out of this anytime you want to. Okay, why are you? So the thing is not what he's doing. Okay, why are you doing what you're doing?
Right.
Why are you still in it?
And that's not allowing your emotions to take control of the situation. That's forcing you to actually, what do you call it? Engage yourself.
Yes.
And there's a term I'm looking for. You almost interrogate your own priorities. You interrogate your own actions. Your own. Most particularly, you interrogate your assumptions.
It's called self-reflection. Okay, why am I doing what I'm doing? Yeah,
absolutely. And to be on guard, to do that on a regular basis, to make sure that you're not making decisions from the wrong standpoint, a standpoint that's going to hurt you in the long run.
Yeah. I've seen girl dads, dads that like Cheyenne Bryant. You can tell Cheyenne Bryant's a girl dad. Okay, it's because of the way she speaks. Okay. It's not flowery language. It's about she might be wrong, but it's about intention, about outcome.
He says she might be wrong.
But you can tell by her stance and the way she talks to men that she wasn't raised by her mother. Okay.
Yeah. But I think that's one of the reasons that fathers are so important. And so when we downplay not only fathers, when we downplay men's roles in the families, and we suggest that what we need to do is have men emulate women, this is why I think it's highly problematic, because what you end up eliminating is the capacity for self-awareness, the capacity for goal setting, for prioritizing, the capacity for balancing emotion with thought, reason. Now, I know we like to say that emotions and logic and men and women are not exclusive. What I will say is that at the end of the day, on a practical level, when you eliminate fathers from the Black community, from the Black family, you tell me what the outcome has been.
Yeah.
Even to the point of when fathers are there, we're going to downplay his involvement and not allow him the space to be a father, because we've heard that fathers have no role anymore. It all needs to come down to mothers, because mothers do all the hard work, and we've heard all the feminist rhetoric around it. No. Fathers have an incredibly important role.
Yeah. If you see it, pull this up, man. I just want to demonstrate a father. Okay.
Keep your hands up. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. I don't hear nothing. Let your dad fix that. Go over there and see your dad. Let him fix that. Fix it. 1, 2, 3.
What you crying for?
1, 2, 3.
What are you crying about?
1, 2, 3. Good. 1, 2, 3, 2. Hey, 1, 2.
Okay, so you
1, 2.
Something left. You say something.
1, 2. 1, 2, 3.
Left, front, go.
Good. That's what I'm talking about. Go around one together anyway. One mess up, everybody go. Everybody go. Go.
Come here. What are you crying about? Still don't know? Huh? Okay, go on. faster.
Now he's, just to be clear, he's teaching him how to manage his emotions.
Yes, exactly.
But we're told men don't have anything to do with emotions. Men don't care about emotion. He's teaching his son how to manage emotion
And how to use his words.
and how to use his words. And if you can't articulate, sometimes you got to run it out. Sometimes you got to punch the bag. Sometimes you have to get it out. Now, we just heard from Dr. Neal that men don't know how to get it out. They don't know how to articulate their emotions.
Mm-hmm.
But let me let him continue.
You know, are you crying? What's up? Why you crying? Good. Why did he do that? You know why he hit you in the eye? Because you didn't have your hands up. You understand? 1, 2, 3. He's trying to teach you why your hands need to be up.
Good.
So next time, if he hits you with the phone, it won't hit you in the eye because your hand be up. You understand?
Good. 1, 2, 3.
Put your hands up. I hit you in the face. Now put your hand back up.
Come on.
Your hand, you better block that shot. You understand? That's why you got hit in the eye. What you gonna do with his hand? Say something. What you gonna do with his hand? You gonna put it up now, right? So that way you don't get hit in the eye. You understand? That's why you got hit in the eye. He wants you to learn to put your hand up so you can protect yourself. You was crying, right? Show me you mad. Here you go. Put your hands up. Hand up. Hand up. Boom. There you go. All right, now I want you to block a shot. I'm finna try to hit you, okay? You ready? Boom. All right, now throw a punch. Throw a punch. Throw a punch. Boom. Boom. Good job. Hand up. Boom. There you go. Throw a punch. Boom. Boom. There you go. Hand up. Boom. Throw a punch.
Look at his face.
Boom. Boom. There you go. Boom. 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 There you go. Boom. Here we go. Boom. Boom. There you go. That's why you got hit in the eye. He wants you to learn to protect yourself, okay? You all good now? You want a hug? All right.
Hey, but BGS, I thought we don't show affection.
Don't show affection, yeah.
We don't hug. We don't have emotions. We're just robots.
They're just robots, yeah.
Is that really what just happened in that exchange?
Now, would a mother done the same thing?
There we go.
She'd called, "Oh, bear baby, you're crying."
Right.
That's the epitome of what a father does. Okay.
And I love the look on the kid's face when he finally got it.
He got it. Yeah.
He finally got it. He now understood that the world wasn't against him. You know, he understood it was a lesson, and he had to get his emotions out the way to understand it. And when he developed a new skill, he hugged his father, went back to class.
Yeah, you can see the confidence rising as his father showed him what to do. Okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah, he went from crying and being upset and being defeated to confident.
Absolutely. So, shout out to all the fathers there who don't get respect, especially in the community. But yeah. And thank you for coming through today, man.
Yeah, but I guarantee you, he won't show this. The doc won't show this.
Well, no, because we have no feelings, we have no love, we don't care.
Yeah, we've been mismanaged. We're defective.
Come on. I mean, the data already shows us who the most interactive fathers actually are across race.
And you know what? When the past reports are proven, when we go across overseas to other cultures, we're the most progressive, most understanding, most emotionally intelligent creatures on the planet.
Man. But again, I appreciate you coming through, man. Thank you. Y'all make sure you support BGS. You want to tell us when you're doing a show next?
I would be doing a show tomorrow. Also look for me on my Black Pill Gnostic page, where I'm going to resume doing my pre-recorded videos. Okay, I got one coming up in a minute. In fact, I got to finish editing it and putting it out. So,
all right, much appreciated, man.
All right, Doc. What's next on your Patreon?
I just saw 2 movies this last few days. I saw the RZA's Spoonful of Chocolate, I think it was called, and I saw The Devil Wears Prada 2.
Okay. Oh, okay. They're doing a reboot. I'm not a
sequel.
continuation. A sequel.
Yeah, it's in
God,
both.
it's got to be almost 30 years, right?
Yeah, it's been a minute, and they're so I just saw both movies, so I'm basically gonna put my thoughts together on both, put them up on Patreon,
Okay.
And go from there. So yeah, but make sure y'all support BGS's channels. And are you gonna do one tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm gonna do one tomorrow. Yeah.
You know what you're doing it on yet?
Let's see. I had it in my head.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm thinking I either might do a Dr. Curry's review, Dr. Curry's last BMS, or there's another one. I might talk about the woman that was bothering the man in the car, because what happened with his whole story behind that, right? What happened is that he left after it was a sports show that actually talked about her harassing him in the car, and he listened to it. He leave back the stuff and he left. So she's blaming the show for him leaving.
Good Lord, man. Anyway, all right, man. Well, I'm gonna call it a night.
All right, Doc.
All right, I appreciate you. All right, peace.
All right.
Shout out to all of y'all that came through, supported the show. I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section. I want to know what your responses are to what we played today. What you've seen, what you've witnessed, what you've experienced. Let us know, and let's continue the conversation. All right. So y'all have a good one. I will holler at y'all later. Peace. I am here to tell you, brothers, we are not criminals by birth, perennial rapists, incapable intellects, man-children, sperm donors, child support wellsprings, success objects, walking phalluses, ATM machines, lottery tickets, unintelligent henchmen, valueless assassins, pro bono mercenaries, unpaid bodyguards, interchangeable stepfathers, child discipline proxies, unpaid repairmen, workhorses, emotional tampons, or any other socially accepted dehumanizing stereotype. We are thinkers, inventors, innovators, leaders, fathers, and men. Embrace your humanity, know your worth, and extend your time, attention, and resources only to those who genuinely respect you. And remember, your worth is not defined by meeting other people's narcissistic, selfish, and unrealistic needs. You define your worth. Peace.